What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Blazers Uprise Live here on a Monday night. It's draft week. We got 2 shows before draft day. We'll go live again on Wednesday night. But for today, we got a new graphics package because it's the off season. The bottom ticker made no more sense, so maybe I'll switch it up. I just threw this together in like 3 minutes. But yeah, let me know if you guys like this template or if I should try again. Anyway, Eric, we just got chaos to talk about today, as it is that time of the draft process where you're just hearing a bunch of different stuff regarding a bunch of different teams, stuff out of left field, stuff out of right field, it's just absolute chaos right now, and it's hard for people to wrap their heads around all the contradicting, conflicting stuff that they're hearing, especially regarding this Portland Trailblazers team. Chris Haynes saying that Miami's hopeful Dame will ask out, and then Shams saying Dame wants to be there, and will the Blazers use the 3rd pick? Will they trade the 3rd pick? It's driving me crazy. I'm kind of enjoying it, but also it's very stressful, and it's very hard to kind of keep track with everything being said right now. Bill Simmons says Zion's going to be traded by Thursday, and Charlotte with their decision at number 2. We got so many different storylines heading into this draft, and that's awesome for content creators like us because we got a ton to talk about tonight. I'm expecting to be live for a while tonight because we're going to try and encapsulate it all and cover everything and talk about all the storylines, and it's just going to be absolute chaos. So we got you guys covered for the next 2 hours at least. I'm looking forward to this stream, man.
New flex tweet too, man.
New flex tweet dropped. The Ayton, Beal, of course, got traded. It's just absolute chaos right now. So thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully you guys are having a good rest or a good Monday night. Good Monday night, man. I got another video dropping tonight. 2 videos dropped today. Eric's preview for the offseason, and also, I don't even remember what video I dropped, but I dropped a video.
Trading to get our pick back.
Oh, pick protections. Yeah, see, that's where my mind is at. I'm so distracted. I can't even remember what I did like 3 hours ago. So hopefully you guys are having a good night. Eric, how's it going, man?
Oh, pretty good. Had to represent my Reds tonight. It's been a while since I've been able to be hyped about them, but they've won 9 in a row and looking good. So, yeah.
Yep. What is their record now?
38 and 35 now. They started the season
than the
really
Mariners.
bad. Yeah, they've just been on a roll.
Nice. Happy for you. Yeah, they got that Dela Cruz.
Elliot De La Cruz. Yeah, they're
phenomenal name.
They're 11-2, I think, since they called him up. Not that he's been like the main reason, but they've just been killing fools.
I'm glad you have hope for one of your teams. Do you have hope that something good is going to happen for the Blazers?
No, I don't. I'm hopeful that it does, but until it actually happens, I never believe that something is going to happen. Like, I'll be like, oh no, do I want to read this Woj tweet or whatever? Yeah, so I'm going to be scared to read it. So hopefully it's good. Like, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility of it being good. I just won't believe that it will be good until I actually see something and be like, whoa, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with the black borders. By the way, I have no idea what to expect out of this deadline. I have no idea. At this point, I feel like they're taking the pick, they're keeping the pick, but that's just on a whim. That's just a gut feeling. I have never been this unsure as to what's going to happen with this team going into an offseason as I am now. Because in the past, especially under Neil Olshey, it kind of just felt like, oh, well, if there's not serious traction on something, then we should just expect the status quo. And that played out multiple off seasons in a row almost. There will be a little move here, a little move there. But at this point, with this being such a monumental offseason, like, there's so many different scenarios that could play out this offseason, not just with moves, but also, is Dame going to hate it if we draft the 3rd pick, or is he able to be persuaded into us drafting someone with the 3rd overall pick? Who would he prefer with the 3rd overall pick? What trades are truly out there? Will Masai Ujiri stop being stingy? We got a bunch of different ways we can go with this. I'm going to leave it up to chat first. Okay. Chat, we'll do a Q&A, and we'll let that segue us into different topics, because I don't know what to choose first, but we'll take your questions, and based on what we're getting the most questions about, we can talk about that. Also, hit a like on the stream. We got 250 people in here, 36 likes, so hit that like button if you like us.
And I just want to say once again, before we start talking about rumors, you have to ask yourself with every rumor, why would it make sense for a team like Portland, if they want a certain player or want to keep a pick or want to draft a certain player, or a certain player had an amazing workout, why would it make sense for them to leak that to the press if that was their plan for this offseason? Why would they just announce it and leak that to the media? So try to keep that in mind when you read all these rumors, and don't just tell me, oh, so-and-so said this isn't happening, so you were wrong, Eric, or whatever. Like, come on, like, nothing's happened yet other than the Beal trade. So, and that wasn't one of our targets, obviously. So,
and that came out of the blue too.
Yeah.
That was a wild situation. We can, of course, talk about that. I want to talk about that a little bit later, though.
Yeah.
I want to just kind of jump into Blazers stuff. My question is how likely we can get DeLon and Gafford from Washington. So a lot of people are on board with a couple of the targets that we've liked in terms of DeLon Wright and Daniel Gafford. Of course, that comes along the heels of Bradley Beal getting traded, and Washington wants to use cap space, or maybe I don't know what trade exceptions they have, but basically they want to take on salary in order to increase their draft capital, especially with a lot of teams potentially looking to duck the super tax, with this being the first year it's going to be imposed once free agency starts. So a way that Washington could clear some money so that they can take on bad contracts would be to move off of Daniel Gafford and DeLon Wright, who are owed a combined approximately $20 million, $20 to $21 million next season. And why it's interesting for Portland is Portland has a big enough trade exception to take on both of them if they make the trade happen before free agency starts, because Gafford's salary before free agency is like $2 million, and then once free agency starts, it bumps up to $12 million. Portland has a approximately $3 million trade exception they got from... I forget which trade that was from, but then they have an $8 million trade exception that they got from GP2.
One of them's from the Hart trade, and one of them's from the GP2
yes,
trade.
the Hart trade, yeah. I was thinking like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, but that was in the past.
Yeah.
So the Blazers, DeLon Wright makes $8.1 million. Blazers have an $8.3 million trade exception. So Portland can help Washington get off that salary without having to take anything back, and could just get a backup center and a backup guard that can both defend and play make, and is an okay shooter, low below average, but like good enough to be okay in DeLon Wright. And DeLon Wright has the size to play the point and the shooting guard position next to Dame. So if the Blazers are planning on trading Anthony Simons, DeLon Wright, I think, is a really good option as a third guard. So
wait,
not
Tori,
flashy
I thought
names.
You tweeted out that we were trading Anthony Simons in the third pick for Darrell Wright.
Yeah, some people actually thought I wanted to trade the third pick in Anthony Simons for DeLon Wright, which was just crazy to me. But so these two names, Eric, make a lot of sense for depth pieces. Maybe getting Gafford allows Portland to move off Nurk's matching salary in a trade. Do you think that Portland would potentially be looking to just take on $20 million of salary going into next year before they do anything else?
No. I don't think
do you think they'd be willing to do it after?
No, I don't. Because that bump, it means you're trading out basically nothing and adding 21 million next year. I don't think they're going to be willing to do it. And this is part of when we talk about on this show committing to winning. If you want to commit, those are the kind of moves you have to make, not just dumb moves to go into the tax, but those are two players that could be rotation players and depth pieces if you make a big trade like you mentioned. So that is a case where you need to actually want to pay money for that. And I mean, I'd be happy to be wrong with this one, but I just don't think the Blazers will be willing to do that. And the other advantage of it too is that's 21 million in salary we'd have up until the trade deadline next year to include, like, let's just say we didn't trade or another player became available or something, like a Giannis or something, and we kept the third pick or something, and we can include like Scoot and DeLon and Gafford and Sharp or something to get Giannis or something if he becomes available. Like, I know that's like a pipe dream or whatever, but I'm just saying you can use that salary. We don't have a lot of tradable contracts. It would be nice to add some of those right now. And we talked about this ad nauseum, but if we had Wiseman's contract right now, we could match it would open up the doors to make a lot of trades happen that aren't possible right now because of our contract situation. So I would love it. That's something that I've been saying for weeks. Gafford, I've been saying for a long time to go get him before his contract goes up. But I just don't think the Blazers will take on that salary.
Yeah. Now, I expect Jody to be cheap. People have told me that she's willing to spend. Mm-hmm. I have heard that, but until I see it, I'm not going to put any stock into that being a possibility. If she is willing to spend, then I'm not going to be as critical of her as an owner, because that's really kind of the problem is, and I understand it in some years where the team is bad and you're not really giving up much in order to deduct the luxury tax, but they didn't want to pay Josh Hart. They traded him for the 23rd pick, and then they didn't even really work out anyone in the range of the 23rd pick, so obviously they don't really value that asset, or they're using it to get future first back, which is the more likely scenario.
Or they have someone like a James Najee who they think will be there at 23, and they're trying to secretly not let anyone know that they're interested in them, maybe.
Yeah, which is possible, but there is an off chance that maybe Joey's willing to spend, because there have been people that are more in the know than I am that have implied that, but I wouldn't put any stock into it. Because, that's just lip service for the owner. That's probably just coming from the front office itself, right? That wants to make their owner look good because she's their employer. I don't know. So I'm operating under the status quo in terms of trying to guess as to what's going to happen, and that's Jody's not going to pay a ton of money in terms of tax. I doubt she's going to pay the tax regardless. Maybe she pays a little bit of tax, goes, 165, 166 million. You outlined a scenario where the Blazers could use part of their MLE with kind of like their base expected roster in their preview, but I just wouldn't expect anything different at this point.
Yeah. We've been hearing since Paul died that Jody is financially committed and will do what it takes and has been great. She's always willing to spend and all that, but everything suggests otherwise, right? So that's my approach. Sorry if that's negative or pessimistic, but I'm a believe it when I see it kind of guy. So I'll happily accept it when it happens. I'll credit Joe if he pulls off some good moves. But yeah, I'm not going to give them preemptive credit before they pull off something that hasn't happened under their tenure so far.
Yeah. And maybe it's a situation where she's willing to pay if the team is good enough. And this team right now obviously isn't good enough. Last year it wasn't good enough in order to justify paying the luxury tax. Jody's just kind of the question mark. I'm with you. I'm not expecting much. But if they can pull off a big blockbuster and are willing to do so, which is also kind of a questionable thing, then maybe things are a little bit more loose in terms of the pocketbook. But still, even if they are going for it, I think it would be hard for a front office to justify two guys that would probably come off the bench for $21 million. Mm-hmm. And with tax, that's going to be like $30 million or $40 million that she's paying for two bench guys. Like, it would be hard to sell any owner on that, especially one that's cheap. So I'm not expecting Gafford and Wright to both be options. Maybe one of them, but not both.
But so like under the new rules, it's gonna be kind of tough, in my opinion, to get the full MLE, right? So you're probably looking at the tax MLE at best if we're just talking about free agency routes, and probably re-signing Thibault, Grant, those guys. And so like if you're trying to compete, you're trying to win, you are dedicated and committed to winning, there aren't many ways to add those bench pieces. And that's why our bench has sucked so many times in the past, right? Because we haven't been willing to even add a backup center if it puts us, $1 million into the tax or whatever. So that's my problem with this whole thing is DeLon and Gafford could be two solid rotational pieces off your bench. And yeah, it's costly, but if you're if you really do want to win, I think you have to make those kind of financial commitments. And the teams, it's a trend lately. I mean, you have your young and up and coming teams that haven't won anything yet, like the Kings and the Grizzlies and teams like that that'll eventually have to pay to keep those teams together and might have to go deep into the tax to add a rotational piece to get over the top. But the teams that win championships, Denver finally goes deep into the tax. And what happens? They win a championship, right? They add a Bruce Brown and a KCP and those kind of players. They pay their guys, Gordon and Michael Porter Jr., big contracts to stay in Denver. And they keep that team together and keep adding pieces and go further in the tax. And it results in a championship. And then Golden State famously just writes blank checks, and it's almost unfair how much money they're willing to pay for teams. And now you look at Phoenix, just Matt Ishbia is just doing whatever it takes to he doesn't care about the financial part. He just wants to win and wants to win right away. So I just think you're kind of limiting how much of a contender you can be if you're already playing we can't go this far into the tax, or we can't spend money here to do that. So unfortunately, if that's the case, we're kind of screwed from this scenario panning out anyway.
I mean, with the super tax and the heavier penalties for that, maybe it's not a logical decision, regardless of, the owner to go potentially into the super tax for two guys like that. It changes the calculation a little bit with the harsher penalties basically under the new CBA for having that high of a payroll. So I think at this point, the Blazers are going to have to fill out a bench. That's step 2. Step 1 is figuring out what they're doing with this third overall pick. And you can maybe address step 2 first. It doesn't have to necessarily be trade 3 and then look at the bench. They could make a move now that could be good for the bench regardless of what happens with 3. Yeah. But when you're talking about just purely adding $20 million of salary, that's not going to come before something big. So that's where you kind of focus on what the Blazers could pull off in terms of a big trade on draft night. I don't even expect anything regarding role players unless it's like the 23rd pick gets traded for Finney-Smith after the Blazers draft, presumably Brandon Miller with the 3rd overall pick, and don't end up trading it. So I think you're going to have a resolution on that 3rd pick before you have any sort of traction on anything else regarding this team. Shout out Doug Johnson, $10 dono, says, Joe Cronin, quote, "We are borderline anxious to push all of our chips in." Thank you, Doug, for the $10 dono. I mean, everybody's borderline anxious slash stressing slash scared. How many of you guys are scared for Thursday? Or anxious? Like, what's your emotions going into Thursday? Let me know in the live chat. Borderline might be a little bit of an understatement. I agree, Eric Olson. Yeah, it's gonna be a wild day. I'm stressing right now. I'm stressing about the stream more so than anything, just trying to make sure I get everything I want to do for that stream up and running ahead of time, so I'm not procrastinating. But man, I'm stressed. I'm excited. I'm every emotion going into Thursday. Have no idea what's going to happen, but Eric, what are you feeling, man? Are you scared?
I'm with my mom, worried.
Worried?
I'm worried, yeah.
Yeah. I have no idea. I'm a little worried. I agree. So there was questions before the stream about another platform that had brought up that Portland supposedly is going after both OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam. Okay, I was kind of laughing at it because there was something that was mentioned to me 2 days ago that was along the same lines, and now that said other platform has brought it up, I can talk a little bit more about it. So I don't believe it, but I heard the same thing. And I don't really have sources, but I heard the same thing, is that supposedly the Blazers are going after both Siakam and OG. But what does that even mean, Eric? Going after them doesn't really mean much, because if they could go after them all they want, if Masai Ujiri is sitting there like, no, we want literally every single piece you have for just Anunoby, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're going after both of them. That's why I don't really believe it as something substantial.
And there's always dumb things about Siakam being more available than OG is going to be easier to get Siakam than OG. It doesn't make any sense, but
yeah. And you're talking about Masai Ujiri, like, is there any? I'm kind of thinking out loud here. Is there any foreseeable package that could get both? I think it would be obviously 3 and Ant and Nurk and Nas, and that matches salary for Siakam and OG. You're probably trading 23 to Chicago for future firsts, and then you're trading some collection of those future firsts. How many of those future firsts would have to be sent Toronto's way to even have a chance? Or would Shaedon Sharpe have to be thrown in the deal?
I don't think there's any chance they're trading Sharpe for anyone other than Giannis or Embiid type players. But I don't know. It's weird because everything I've heard, they haven't come down on their asking price for OG. They got offered 3 protected first or something, and a young player at the deadline and turned it down. So there's 3 first right there, and then Pascal, they were asking. They said don't call us unless Sharpe, Ant, and 3 first-round picks were involved. So there's 6 first-round picks. The only possible way I think it's less than that is they have to think whoever's there at 3, whether it's Scoot or Miller or I think they would want Amen, but they'd have to think one of those players is a better player than Siakam and OG and just like a superstar level player, and maybe you can convince them to lower their asking price, but
or the potential alternative is they are more worried now about those guys potentially walking a year from now than they were, at this past year's trade deadline or a month ago. But I don't really know what would have changed to make them worry a little bit more. Maybe it's potentially Fred VanVleet leaving because he's going to be a free agent. I don't know. But at some point, you would assume Masai, if he's being reasonable, would come down a little bit from his insane asking prices.
Yeah. But the same thing would apply to Portland getting them, right? Because they could both walk from Portland in a year or two. So Portland's, I don't think they're wanting to give up too much more than 3 Ant and Nurk and Nas. Then I don't think they would want to give up multiple firsts, because then they're stuck in the same situation. Not only do you have to pay both of them, but you're probably talking about $60-70 million to have to pay both of them on top of Dame and Grant and all that stuff. So once again, we're talking about, would Jody even be willing to do that? Because we're talking 3 or 4 players between Grant, OG, Siakam, and Dame. That would be $150 million potentially, depending on what Grant signs for. I don't know if they're willing to do that. So I'd be surprised if they traded for both of them. But I mean, they're also kind of stuck in this situation where if that's the best deal available, they might have to take it just because they have to do something or want to do something,
Well, that was my first question when I heard this, is so Jody's willing to just pay a ton of tax, and that's where I heard supposedly she's willing to spend, which we've heard in the past, but I'm not going to trust that. I don't believe that. But you have to wonder if Toronto, with both those guys being free agents next offseason, might be sitting there okay, maybe it's time to truly hit the rebuild button, truly hit the reset button. And you got Scotty Barnes there as a young guy. Maybe Fred VanVleet has changed the calculation for Masai Ujiri a little bit in regards to his forwards, in regards to the direction of his team. Maybe he needed the potential of Fred VanVleet leaving to actually realize, oh, wait, Anunoby and Siakam can leave a year from now. Maybe we just need to find a direction. Because that team, even with Van Vliet, Siakam, OG, Scotty Barnes, they traded for Jakob Poeltl, that wasn't a playoff team this year. They don't really have a direction right now. They're stuck in the middle, and they got the 13th pick. They're not going to really be able to become a contender in the next couple of years, in my opinion, unless they get extremely lucky, just like the Phoenix Suns did just with Bradley Beal value-wise. Outside of a miracle like that, I don't see how they contend. If you look at risk versus reward, it's risky to not cash in on Siakam and Anunoby when they're going to be free agents a year from now, and I don't see Toronto contending with those guys. So maybe Masai is trying to play hardball. Like, this is when we talk about GM games, you know, you always start off with a higher asking price. That's just basic negotiation. What were you going to say?
What, did you hear what Masai said today, though?
No, I didn't.
He said that he truly believes that their team is, talent-wise, is the same as the Miami Heat, and that he sees no reason why they can't just keep it together and go on a run like they did this year.
Yeah. I mean, I would expect him to say that.
Yeah.
Every GM is going to play up what they got.
But he's been that delusional in the past.
Yeah, it's definitely possible that that's his mindset, and like they do absolutely nothing. Actually, that's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting Toronto to do absolutely nothing outside of drafting probably Kobe Buffkin with the 13th pick, because I could see Masai viewing him as the guy that could come in and start right away and replace Fred VanVleet, and maybe be a little bit more well-rounded. Like, I think Kobe Buffkin's NBA ready. And I have a top 10 grade on him, to be honest with you. I love Kobe Buffkin. I've talked about it in the past. I mean, I could see Masai believing that, you know, Buffkin or maybe Cason Wallace is there at 13, who's also a guy that's NBA ready, could just come in, replace VanVleet, cheaper option, and with Poeltl and with OG, Scotty, Siakam, and whoever they drafted 13, that's their starting lineup, and maybe with a better bench, they can make some noise. That's what I expect Toronto's mindset to be heading into this offseason. I would be surprised if it was something different, but it might be possible. It might be possible. Either it's that, or they probably completely blow it up. I don't see the sense in like going halfway for them. I feel like they need to pick a clear-cut direction, and either that's trading both those guys or not trading either.
Yeah.
So if they could trade both those guys in the same package, I mean, you know, and just maximize value just with one team, that might be easiest. I don't know.
But if we're going to trade Nurk and Ants, that makes it more important, I think, to do the DeLon Wright Gafford trade, right? Even though, because I mean, we're going to be deep in the tax, so screw it, just go all in, right? We'll need a center then, and I see these other platforms you mentioned just say, well, just plug in a center there, and it's like, well, you can't just plug in a center. You have to find a way to get that center. So, yeah, so I would like Gafford to be that stopgap or whatever, and then you still need another center. Then you need two no matter what, and so, yeah, hopefully they figure something out. Because I don't think just making that trade is enough necessarily. I mean, it'd be a good start, but I also don't know if it's worth giving up the third pick for them either. But
yeah, I saw a comment in chat. I forget who it was, but somebody said this would mean the end of Grant. I absolutely don't think so, because that's a asset that if you're going this route, it makes zero sense to let walk. I think it would either be one or two things in this scenario. It'd either be your starting front court at the 3, 4, and 5 is Anunoby, Grant, and Siakam, or you go bigger and you start Anunoby at the 2, Grant at the 3, Siakam at the 4, and you find a center. I feel like if the Blazers wanted to do this, I feel like they would lean towards the first option, where they just start Siakam at center and have a fantastic offense, but defensively it's questionable when you start Sharp at the 2 in that scenario. I don't know which would necessarily be better, because if you're starting Anunoby at the 3, Grant at the 4, Siakam at the 5, that might be the worst rebounding team in the league. Like, that team would not be able to rebound unless Sharp becomes like a Josh Hart type of rebounder on the wing, which maybe he could because he's athletic as hell. But it would definitely have some flaws that would make me hesitant to sit there and say they're a contender. And when you're talking about giving up the third pick plus future first in that scenario, because there's no way to make it happen without that, in my opinion, then it's very, very risky. But at this point, I mean, maybe you take a risk like that, see how it pans out, and then try and fix the flaws later. I don't know, man. At this point, I wouldn't hate that trade if it happened, because it'd mean Dame's staying, and it means you got three good forwards, three forwards that we've identified in the past like 3 years as potential options, and they'd be on this team. So the forward problem would no longer be a problem. We basically would have taken our embarrassment of riches at the backcourt spots and put it at forward. I just wonder about fit and all of that. But then again, it's like, who's the second best team in the West next year? It's Phoenix, right? They have major fit issues with Beal next to Booker, next to KD, and basically nothing else. So, I mean, at this point, maybe that move does make sense. I don't know. It'd just be interesting to see how they follow it up.
Just get as many talented players as possible and figure it out. You can always trade one of them again. You can always move Grant after either December 15th or January 15th, depending on his contract. So you can still make moves.
Mind over matter. Am I tripping? I thought Sharp was in that deal. In what deal? It's not even a concrete deal, so he might be. I don't know. Nothing. That deal wasn't even close to for sure happening.
From what I've heard is they've lost their chance to get Sharp. There's no chance we're including him in that trade.
Yeah. So I don't know. So that's where it falls back to, Eric. I have no clue. Even if that's what they're after, who knows what that trade looks like? I don't think anybody knows what that trade would look like. I don't think the GMs know what that trade would look like yet.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to say is the Blazers don't even know what they're doing yet. So it's not like anyone knows for sure. But this is what ultimately they're hoping happens. Their main two targets this entire time are not on Toronto. It's Mikal Bridges and Jaylen Brown. And they want one of those guys. And they are hoping like heck that all these trade rumors and leverage and the third pick and just one of those two teams panic and give in to that and want to make a deal with Portland for one of those two players. And yeah, I mean, who knows if that'll happen or not. I still think the Jaylen Brown thing is a strong possibility, because let me just say this about because I got a bunch of people today telling me that I was wrong about Brown because their front office said they were going to offer him the Supermax or whatever. It doesn't mean they're going to offer it to him, and it doesn't mean Brown's going to accept it, and it doesn't mean that it's like a done deal or whatever. Like, this is what smart teams do so they don't lose leverage. They're not going to come out and say, no, we're not sure if we want to offer Jaylen Brown the Supermax, because then that'll piss him off, and then like there's no point in saying that. So of course they're going to answer every question that they're not trading Jaylen Brown, and they're not going to like hedge on offering them the Supermax. They're gonna say they're gonna do that. So until he actually signs, because like one of two things are gonna happen. He's either gonna accept it if they offer him a Supermax, or he's gonna say no, and then they lost all their leverage because it'll come out that they offered him the Supermax and he didn't accept it, right? And then they have to trade him then, right? So they're gonna wait until like they're for sure, like they know for sure to offer that to him. So and quit saying it's $100 million. It is not $100 million. It's closer to 50. It's still a lot of money. But here's the other thing. We've talked about this, and we know teams do not want to pay, or there's going to be teams that are going to try and avoid the second tax, and how much that limits you to make moves and stuff. Phoenix is going to find that out this year. And Boston, it's not even clear, despite what they're saying, if they want to tie up that much money between two players and offer him the supermax, they could be looking at this, and they've been a relatively cheap team in the past to where even when they were good, they've done trades that have been cost-cutting trades, not winning trades. And so this is a situation where if Boston doesn't offer him the supermax either and offers him slightly less than the supermax, that could also make Jaylen Brown mad because, like, what's the point of staying if he's not getting that extra money either? So it's not for sure that they're going to offer him the supermax, even that's what they're saying. And the allure, especially if Scoot Henderson is on the board, the allure of having a cost-controlled rookie contract for 4 years and another really good cheap player like Anthony Simons for 3 more years instead of paying him $50-60 million or whatever, that could factor into this still. And Portland is banking on, or not necessarily banking, but that's their ultimate goal would be to have one of those two teams cave and be like, you know what, we really like Scoot. We have a chance to get him. We'll never have this chance again because once Scoot gets drafted and if he's good, like that team's not going to trade him. So that might be the ultimate goal here. And so that might be why you hear stuff like, oh, Portland's interested in Zion. They're just trying to drum up as much fear in those two teams as possible to get them to one of them to budge. Yeah.
I'll take the couple of donos in a second. I just want to add on to this conversation before we start reading off donos. The one part of all this that I'm worried about, and I've been worried about this kind of the entire time, is I still feel like, and especially now, because now he's the betting favorite, I still feel like Charlotte's going to take Scoot Henderson at number 2. I've felt like that for a while, and there was all this talk about Charlotte is going to take Miller, and I never really bought into it like other people did. A lot of people bought into that, like, oh, that's going to happen. We're going to be able to either draft Scoot, we should take Scoot and trade Dame. That was a main topic of conversation for a long time. Or it's, oh, we could get a lot for the 3rd pick because Scoot will be there. But now Scoot's the betting favorite to go number 2. It doesn't mean he's going number 2, but the whole thing with Brandon Miller and the mono thing that he had that I was talking about, how he lost weight, he hasn't been working out as well as Scoot supposedly. And I mean, if you're a smart team, you're probably not docking Miller too much for that, considering he lost weight and is coming off mono and probably isn't going to be in the best shape, but that ain't his fault. It's not a dedication to the game question or anything like that, but I still feel like Scoot goes 2, and then a lot of these potential trades might not be there if Miller's at 3. Or Charlotte finds a trade that they like more than drafting Scoot or Miller, and they take that trade, and that team trades to 2. If that's going to be a team, my guess is it's New Orleans trading Zion to Charlotte, and Charlotte's just sitting there like, oh, well, if LaMelo and Zion get hurt, at least we can tank for the next 3 years, but if they're healthy, that's a freaking phenomenal pick-and-roll duo. Like, there's a number of different things that could happen where the Blazers don't have the option to draft Scoot, and I'm just curious how many trade packages that the Blazers have discussed are dependent upon Scoot being there. The thing is with Boston is, I mean, maybe they would like Brandon Miller because he could replace Jaylen Brown on the wing, and
they're getting Ant too.
Yeah, and they get Ant in the backcourt, a little extra shot creation upside, but then you get Brandon Miller, who could be like an 18-point-per-game scorer as a rookie, just a guy that knocks down threes, space the court, can create a little bit his rookie year, and hopefully for his sake create more as his career goes on. That's kind of where his upside lies, is can he be like a true off-the-dribble threat, finish better at the rim than he did in college, at least for a portion of his season because he was inconsistent there, got better as the year went on. Hopefully for him, that's real. But other teams, I feel like, want Scoot. And that's just where I wonder how many of these packages are not doable if Scoot's not there on the board at 3.
Yeah, I will say I think Toronto would like him in too. I don't think it's dependent on Scoot. So maybe you still get something done there. But they could also trade with like Houston at 4 maybe and get him in too. So it's not necessarily that they have to panic and trade with us. That's the only problem with scenario where Miller is on the board instead of Scoot is that I don't know if they'll incite that panic, like, oh, we have one shot at getting Scoot, this is it, we have to either take it in 5 minutes or not. I don't think Miller creates that pandemonium, but I do think there are plenty of teams that will still value the third pick whether Scoot is there or not.
Eric Olson says, just yesterday, team said Miller is clear cut above Scoot. Now Scoot is back on top. What? I told you I didn't buy that, Eric. I told you I didn't buy that. And I know that there had been talk about that for a little bit. Like, Scoot didn't end his season too well in the G League. But, I mean, to me, Scoot's just the clear cut second best prospect and has higher upside than Miller. I didn't think teams would value Miller more. Maybe there's a couple of teams out there, but at the very least, they're even. I don't see a team having Brandon Miller noticeably higher than Scoot Henderson. So the thing is with Charlotte is, if they are taking Miller, and I brought this up a week ago on a couple of streams ago, I said, if Charlotte is smart, they'll start acting like they're going to take Scoot Henderson. Because if they want to take Brandon Miller, and Portland's trades are dependent upon Scoot Henderson being on the board, then Charlotte should act like they're going to take Scoot so that they can extrapolate as much value out of Portland potentially in a trade down from 2 to 3, where they can still take Brandon Miller and get extra value. And that would be the smart play for Charlotte. And then right after I brought that up, all of a sudden all these rumors come out. Charlotte's going to take Scoot. They're higher on Scoot now, and he's the betting favorite now, and you know, that might not be real. It might be Charlotte being smart and playing some hardball with Portland, knowing Portland might need Scoot to be on the board to make their trades possible. And they're just trying to extrapolate as much value out of a desperate Portland team, trading down from 2 to 3. And in that scenario, Portland would trade up from 3 to 2 and then trade 2 for whatever trade package they'd get back from Scoot.
Yeah. Well, a retort to that would be Charlotte does not have the longest history of making good draft picks or using their assets wisely. So I mean, last year they could have gotten Duran. They trade him for future picks. They could have gotten or they take James Bouknight at 11. That hasn't worked out the year before. LaMelo's obviously was a good pick at 3. PJ Washington's been okay, but I don't know what they're doing with him this year. They were at 11, traded the pick in 2018, and that pick ended up being SGA, so they didn't get him. The year before that, Malik Monk at 11. Their first round pick in 2016 was Malachi Richardson, who's not even in the league anymore. Frank Kaminsky in 2015 at number 9. Noah Vonleh at 9 the year before that. Cody Zeller at 4 the year before that. And then back to the Dame draft where they took Michael Kidd-Gilchrist at 2 over players like Harrison Barnes and Bradley Beal and Damian Lillard. So, everything you said makes sense, Tori, but that it's also like Charlotte does not have the best history when it comes to drafting here, and they have a history of not taking the person that people think they should take. So,
yeah. Then again, how much of that is, when did Kupchak get there? Kupchak?
I'll look it up. He's been there for a decent amount now.
And of course, Jordan's been the owner, so there's no difference there, and maybe a lot of that is Jordan's doing. But now Jordan's on the way out. Like, it's just kind of a whole messy situation. I wouldn't put past Charlotte to smartly play up that they want to take Scoot and then take Brandon Miller.
Now they don't want Zion, they want Ingram instead.
Is that another report?
That's what came out today, yeah, stupid.
Yeah, so I mean, I've heard Zion instead of Ingram. Now I've heard Ingram instead of Zion. I mean, this is just the chaos that I titled the stream after and I put in the thumbnail. This is the chaos we're talking about. And this is where I just have no clue, man. I don't know.
By the way.
2018. I mean, maybe they listened to the stream and took my advice. Just kidding. But it would be smart for them to do it. And you look at the Kings, right? Among all their draft misses, they were able to get De'Aaron Fox. And then one move that was looked at is really bad, right? They took Halliburton, which was a good pick. And then they traded him for Sabonis, and that was looked as really bad. But then they made the playoffs finally. So now, to some people, it looks really good. To some people, it still looks questionable. To me, it's still a little questionable. But they made the playoffs. They were a 3 seed this year. So even, bad teams, if they get new GMs, new front office, or even if the front office starts figuring it out, can turn things around, I wouldn't necessarily base too much off the past. I have no idea what they're going to do. But when I was hearing all the rumors about Brandon Miller in Charlotte, if people have listened to me before, they know I'm not super high on Brandon Miller. I have a men higher than him. I have Brandon Miller 4th on my board. When I started hearing those rumors, I was thinking, oh, that's just another one in the long line of Charlotte Hornets draft mistakes, because I could easily see them taking Brandon Miller at 2, then Scoot Henderson ends up being a borderline superstar, and Brandon Miller's like a good starter, but that's it.
Mm-hmm. I could see the other way too, though.
I mean, I could see any which way, I could see Tristan Vukcevic becoming the next Jokic or something. Yeah, no, I don't know. The draft's a crapshoot. Nobody truly knows. But that's why it's so fascinating. That's why I love it. Draft is my favorite time of year. It's just super stressful when the Blazers do this to us. I would love to be watching another team go through this chaos while we're a contender and we can just sit back, relax, and just watch it play out for fun. But, no, we get to stress about it because now we're one of those teams who used to always enjoy watching on draft night. Shout out to Brady Sieg, $2 dono, says, you think a men can play the 3? Big playmaker with shooters. Absolutely. He's 6'6" with a 7-foot wingspan. He needs to get a little stronger, but I believe he will. I definitely think he has the size to play the 3, and I think that is why just his athleticism, first step, point guard skills, ability to process is so special, is because he has all that with the size of a small forward. And I think he can be a really good defender. So I think that would be a mismatch for a lot of 3s in the league that aren't going to be as quick as point guards. With him, he just has to figure out how to shoot, obviously. That's the big thing for him.
Yeah, see, I agree he can play the 3, but where I'll disagree is I think the upside or the advantage to having a player who's big like that and can play like a point guard is to have him be a point guard, and then you have that size at a guard position instead of trying to play him against similar sized players at the small forward, even though he might be more athletic than them. I just think it's an advantage to have him play his natural position. So he can play some small forward. I just would prefer him to be on a team where he can be like the main ball handler and stuff, and then use that size like LaMelo does to his advantage with the passing and the athleticism.
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the thing. You could have, if he's the 3, you could have a Seth Curry and a Jordan Hawkins next to him, for example, right? 2 guards that can shoot, space the floor, right? That's not necessarily idealistic by any means, but 2 guards that aren't necessarily point guards but are smaller guards. Basically, his size plus skill set, I think, honestly makes it easier to build a team if you're starting to rebuild with him, because it's hard to find a player with his traits. But then the fact that he can maybe be a big point guard or a small forward that's a bit of a point forward just gives you the ability to mix and match certain pieces a little bit easier. You can go big with him at the point guard spot with a legitimately sized 2, legitimately sized small forward, and then you can build a switchable lineup. Or you can have one of those guards that's not a point guard but an undersized shooting guard, and they can be your smallest player on the court or in the lineup, but they don't have to be the point guard because you got Amen Thompson with small forward size there. That's basically your point forward. So I do like the ability to kind of mix and match lineups with a piece like that.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Shout out Mr. Randy Pooh with the $5 dono. Thank you. Or no, Rudy Pooh. I mispronounced him. Shout out Mr. Rudy Pooh with the $5 dono. Thank you, Mr. Rudy. Says, don't think there's a player you can get for the number 3 pick that would move the needle. Scoot, Miller, Amen, and even Whitmore. This is a pivotal time. Thank you for that dono. I disagree. We've had rookies come in and be really good as rookies. Evan Mobley had the Cavs competitive last year, and that surprised everyone. Or 2 seasons ago, his rookie year, and that surprised everyone. They didn't make the playoffs, but they were better than people expected, and then they were a playoff team this year. It showed them that, we can go trade for Donovan Mitchell. Brandon Miller, I think, can come in and help a team win right away. assuming his shooting translates from college and assuming he can do some things off the dribble. Amen is a big question mark, and so is Whitmore, but those guys have a ton of natural physical talent, and we have to wait and see how that plays out at the NBA level. But I wouldn't just write guys off as not a needle mover. It could be possible that all those guys aren't guys necessarily that help teams contend their rookie year, but this is a really talented draft, so I wouldn't write those guys off as not being able to move a needle.
Did he mean that we couldn't trade it for a pick and we should keep those guys? Or I can't go back and read the question.
Don't think there's a player you can get for the number 3 pick that would move the needle.
He was saying he's talking about trading. He said it in chat right now. I was talking about trading number 3 for a player would move the needle. Yeah.
Okay. He said player you can get for the number 3 pick. So I was thinking player that you can draft since he started naming prospects. I mean, it depends. It depends. Because here's the thing. Thank you for the dono. Whatever the first initial trade isn't the last move. I feel like a lot of people just view trading the 3rd pick as like, oh, this is our all-in move. This is what it's going to be afterwards. Like, are we a contender after this trade of the 3rd pick? But it's only half the offseason. It's you get a guy like a Jaylen Brown or maybe a Siakam or not Anunoby for the 3rd pick, but like maybe Brandon Ingram in 14 and Herb Jones, whatever, right? Like there's a bunch of different trade options out there. I don't think any one of them gets the Blazers all the way to being a contender. The second half of the offseason is, can they build a good bench and get the right types of role players? Because those guys matter in the NBA. You look at Denver, they got Bruce Brown, they got Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. And those guys were huge on their run to a championship. Yeah. Even Christian Brown had some big moments as a rookie, and me and Eric didn't like that pick when it happened, and he kind of proved us wrong, although you did say, like, that's the type of guy that maybe works well in Denver. I was watching that clip back the other day, so, props to you on that. I was laughing at the pick. But, role players matter, especially today. I think there's more parity, so I think having good role players in the right roles is even more impactful now than it's ever been. So that's where, after trading the 3rd pick, it becomes, can they move the needle enough in terms of filling out the rest of the rotation to get to contentionship? And I think it is possible.
Yeah, in my opinion, the Blazers have had some pretty, obviously they've had elite offensive weapons. They still do, in my opinion. Re-sign Grant, you have 3 20-plus game scorers already on your roster, and then you have the bump from Sharp, most likely to being in the mid-teens at least, I think, next year. So, you have the scoring. What this team has needed for a long time is those elite role player types, either just shooting specialists or defensive specialists, or, in a perfect world, players that are 3-and-D specialists and can do both. And so if you add those to an already capable scoring roster, and then you have role players on the defensive end and shooters, I don't understand how that couldn't be better. They weren't, for a majority of last season, they were not that far away from the pack. They were right in the pack, and then they started having injuries, and that we spoke about their lack of depth and lack of defense off the bench and lack of shooting off the bench the entire season. That was and no backup big. We had that problem. We addressed all those problems on this channel during the off season, and they all came back to bite us. So I don't think it's that far away. I go back to the Blazers in 1999. Everyone remembers how
not everyone,
you might not
I
be
was
alive,
like 4.
If you were alive at the time, everyone remembers that moment, losing to the Lakers in the championship or the Western Conference Finals that year. But that offseason, we went out and got Scottie Pippen, and we didn't really trade that much to get him, but we got Scottie Pippen. We got Steve Smith, who was a really good player, and we got Detlef Schrempf, who was not a great player, but he had won 6th Man of the Year a few times in Indiana, and was a really solid player, not for us necessarily once he got here, but at the time it was a good move. And so the Blazers went all in, and they made moves to make them a contender in one season. Like, it's not that out of the realm of possibility. Yes, it's difficult to pull off, but this is part of the reason why we wanted to acquire as many assets from these other trades, and I feel like we didn't do that before. And then the other thing is, I mean, Boston in 2007 did the same thing. They were terrible. They were one of the worst teams in the league, but had Paul Pierce, very similar to the Damian Lillard era, right? Paul Pierce was on a team that with like Antoine Walker, I think they made a conference finals once, and they had playoff failure after playoff failure. And then that year they don't make the playoffs at all. They were hoping to get Greg Oden or the number one pick, or if you listen to Danny Ainge, he would have for sure taken Kevin Durant if they got number one. Yeah, so that they get the fifth pick, and they turn the fifth pick into Ray Allen, and then trade a bunch of other pieces for Kevin Garnett and win a title. It's not that out of the realm of possibility to go from where the Blazers are at to contenders with the base of their roster right now. And it's really hard, and it's most likely not going to happen. But we've also talked about how until Denver won, there was none of the teams that weren't in California or Texas won a title, since the Blazers and Sonics did it in the late 70s. So it's really freaking hard to win a title. Like, it doesn't happen very often. So you have to like, in my opinion, at least try if that opportunity is there. Now, that doesn't mean that the best step to winning a championship isn't keeping the pick and maybe having that pick develop. But if that's the scenario that the Blazers choose, they have to still make other moves and sacrifice some other assets to make sure they have some elite role players, because it won't matter if we just do the same thing again with young guys and don't ever fill out the roster or have a GM that's not capable of doing that.
And here's the thing, like, I feel like people look at our potential roster next year if we trade the third pick, and it's either that team for sure contends or that team has no chance of contending. There's a possibility where we have a team where we don't know if it's going to contend or not. And it's okay to admit that. It's okay to sit here and look at a roster and think it's good, but don't know if it gets all the way, but are still willing to take that chance because it could contend, and you're giving Dame a chance to go out there and see what could happen with a roster like that. But I feel like we just talk about things in such absolutes or certainties that aren't actually true. Like, how many times do we hear a trade for a certain player and, oh, Portland's not winning with that player. Portland can't win with Dame. They're never going to contend. They're just like all so certain and absolute. Or it's, go out and get this guy and we're a contender. There's a big gray area there where we don't know for sure what's going to happen. Like, we don't know for sure if a certain roster is going to contend or not, if it's really good, but maybe has a fit issue somewhere, right? Like, we can admit with certain hypothetical rosters that it might be a contender and it might not. The question is, for a lot of people, are they willing to take that risk for a roster like that to find out? Mm-hmm. And I lean towards yes. It's hard. I understand why people wouldn't want to take that risk unless it's for a for sure contender, but I mean, paper championships mean nothing in the preseason. We've seen teams in the past look like a for sure contender, favorite in the West, favorite in the East, going into the season, and then they don't have anything to show for it. I mean, you remember the Lakers when they got Dwight Howard and Steve Nash to pair with Kobe and Pau Gasol,
yeah.
And that was like, oh, that's such a super team. Oh my goodness, that team's going to dominate. And then they barely make the playoffs and lose in the first round. Like, that's happened before. So, it's okay to not know if
the Nets with Kyrie, Harden, KD.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you can even look at the Bucks this year. They were the 1 seed, right? They go into the playoffs, they lose in the first round. Like, especially in today's NBA where there's more parity and I feel like the teams are closer than ever, you're not going to know for sure how good a team is going to be or where their limit's going to be. if you're going for it, you just got to try and put together the best pieces that also fit. So, and try and get the most value out of every trade. So that's how I try and look at this offseason that's coming up.
And so Trevor mentions Golden State. I don't know what he was referring to Golden State there for, but Golden State tanked, right? And they had injuries and stuff. Get the second pick. They ended up winning a championship. That second pick didn't even help them win a championship or anything, and they gave them away for nothing, right? and they had to give up picks to get Gary Payton back, who was like a minimum contract guy because he fit better, right? So like, it's not necessarily, there's no perfect answer here. So like, I don't care if you want to keep the pick and trade Dame and all that stuff, that's fine. And if you want to, trade the pick and try to build a contender, that's fine too. But don't sit here over and over. I'm talking to you, Kyle. Like every freaking stream, you come in here saying, no, this is for sure the way, this is how you do it, and you have to do it this way, you have to, right? So like, that's all I'm saying, is don't say like, you for sure know the path, because we can sit here for 5 more hours and I will say every champion and how they won a slightly different way than another one. Like Denver, name Denver's top 5 pick. Well, who's Denver's top 5 pick they built around?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Can someone name me Denver's top 5 pick?
Do they even have a single one on their roster?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Oh, Aaron Gordon.
Oh, Aaron Gordon is what? Was he fourth? Yeah, fourth.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Aaron Gordon.
That's why. That's why they won the championship, is because they got Aaron Gordon with the fourth pick.
And they traded for him.
Yeah.
Yep, there you go.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, if you sit here and say things with certainty that aren't certain, you're going to get pushback.
Jeff Green.
Like Kyle says, I don't think I yelled, cussed, or anything. I mean, you're not like necessarily.
You were yelling.
Yeah. Like, you're not like necessarily in the wrong in terms of talking in chat. I'm just saying, like, if you're going to come in here and say things are like certain that aren't, you're going to get pushback on them. And it's the same debates. And the problem is you can't even have a conversation about it, because the conversation becomes, well, that's not for certain. Yeah, it is. That team for sure sucks. Well, you don't know that for sure. Yeah, I do. And that's the it's not even a real conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, there's a whole gray area that people, when they debate sports, love to ignore or love to downplay. Everything's either completely white, completely black, no in between. There's a large area of in between, a large area of uncertainty, right? It's just, I don't know. Like, we've been in the spot where, like, going into each season, we're used to, oh, well, this team can't contend because it's the status quo. We've already seen it. We know what the limitations of that team are, and we know those are fatal flaws that make it so the team can't contend. And in the past, it was basically Golden State and Cleveland for half a decade, and nobody was going to beat those two teams. So I think in today's NBA especially, I just think it's silly to sit here and say with certainty that a team can't contend. I mean, what Denver lost, I know they didn't have Jamal Murray and their role players, but Denver lost in what, the first or second round last year? I forget.
First round.
Now they're champions. Yep. The Heat were an 8 seed. They almost lost in the play-in game, almost missed the playoffs basically, and they were in the finals. So
see,
that's why you'll get pushback on that.
And this is what I'm talking about, Definitive One. We're not certain to win a title with Dame either. Seems like we're more certain to get first-round bounce, matter of fact. Okay, I just said no one's certain. Like that's literally my whole point. We're not certain either way. Like, I agree. We're not certain. Correct. That's my whole point, dude. But you're in here saying, like we have to keep the pick because it's not certain we trade Dame. Well, it's not certain your path either. That's my whole point.
Yeah, that's the problem we've had with in the past 2 to 3 months is, I understand if you want to go the route of going young, like, on paper, I understand trading Dame. The thing is you're not going to get back much for him. That's a different conversation, though. But the problem is like, so many people that sit here and say, like, we're not certain to win with Dame, so we should just use the pick. When we ask for the reasoning, a lot of it's just, Scoot Henderson's going to be a star. We need to take him. And it's like people have the certainty that he's even going to be there on the board at 3, but then also that he's for sure going to be a stud. Like, this certainty with a rebuilding path that's just not there either. Both pathways are uncertain. You can make an argument for both. So that's...
You this was several weeks ago now, but you had a whole thread of teams with top 5 picks that haven't done crap with them.
It's still pinned on my Twitter. By the way, go follow me. Link in the description box below.
But it's right here. It's on the screen now.
Oh yeah, that's my Twitter handle. I put it on the screen. I forgot. Yeah, right. Look at the screen below, not the description. There you go. Go follow me. I'm almost at 3,000 followers. That'll be a cool number to hit. I no longer can dream about getting verified on Twitter, so I guess that's the next best thing. 3K, baby. I'm 8 away. I
don't want to be verified on Twitter.
Yeah. So, shout out to Lucas Tobias with the 22 Rand dono. It's always 22. Thank you, Lucas. Says one. Maybe. Yeah, maybe. One question: would Cronin be able to draft Scoot and Brandon Miller? Could New Orleans trade Zion with Charlotte for the second pick, and then Portland trade Lillard with New Orleans for the second pick via Charlotte, the 14th pick via New Orleans, and Valanciunas? Thank you, Lucas, for the 22 Rand dono. I mean...
No, it's not.
Yeah, I can't say that it couldn't happen because it hypothetically could, but, I mean... We could also hypothetically trade for Giannis then, or Embiid at that point. Like, and here's the thing: if let's just play this out for fun. If Portland went with that hypothetical, I would want to draft Amen Thompson even more. If Portland's trying to build a winner next year, I'm okay with drafting Miller over Amen Thompson. Like, I'm not going to be mad at all. If they're going the full-on rebuild route, I would be mad drafting Miller over Amen Thompson. Now, with Scoot and Ant and Sharp, would have been make sense? Not really, but Dame trades just don't really make sense in general, even if it is for a pick that high, which, I mean, why would New Orleans trade Zion just to run back Lillard and CJ 2.0?
See, Definitive One, this is where you're going to lose me, man. You're arguing with someone, and just because they have the same opinion as Tori and I do, you're saying they're agreeing with us for acceptance. How do you know that's just not their opinion? I know Murray. He has his own opinions. He talks about it in Discord almost every day. Like, I know he's coming from a place where he forms his own opinions. So don't accuse someone of just copying what we're saying just to win an argument. Come on, man. Like, what are you even doing here?
Yep. Well said. Shout out Hyperprime, $2 dono says, y'all think Draymond resigns with Golden State or leaves? Thank you, Hyperprime, for the $2 dono. Good to see you, man. I think he resigns.
Mm-hmm.
He's been there his whole career. I think he resigns on a long-term deal. I think that's why he opted out. I think it'll be hard for him to get the money that would make it worth opting out on the free agent market. Now, you could say sign in trades, but I think Draymond, right when the clock strikes, noon? Or is it 3? When does free agency start? I don't remember.
Something
Pacific
like that,
time. Yeah. Right when that clock strikes midnight as a figure of speech, I think Draymond is resigning with Golden State.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. I think, starting next year, you can now negotiate with your own free agents, I think, ahead of time. That's going to change the game a little bit, too. But yeah, I think he's opted out to sign a long-term deal. Be surprised if it wasn't that. And in terms of Portland getting him, unless he's willing to take the tax mid-level exception or something, I don't see any way. But I'm sure Dame's going to try to get him to come here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, here's the thing. If they draft with the 3rd pick, then Dame probably starts dreaming of sign and trade targets or something. I don't know, man. I don't think it's going to be a situation where he demands out the next day or anything like that.
Chris asked who signs quicker, Grant or Draymond. They're both clutch clients, so I'm going to say they're both going to wait a day, and it's going to be the same time. But yeah, remember last year when all the clutch clients didn't sign on the first day, and we had to wait for like
Yeah,
Nurk
that
on the
was fun.
second day.
Yeah, yeah. We got to stress all day. Like, what if we lose him for nothing? Drew Eubanks is going to be our starting center.
Yep.
Anyway, what other rumors do you want to talk about?
Um. Well, I mean, we haven't
Because
really.
there's still a bunch. I feel like.
Yeah, we haven't talked a ton about the Zion thing. So now it came out today that Portland prefers Zion over Brandon Ingram if they're going to trade, right? Um, so that's it's just funny because once again, I said this at the top of the show, but if Portland wanted Zion, it's not coming from them, right? They're not going to come out and say, "Hey, Shams," or "Hey, Evan Massey," or "Hey, whoever's like leaking this Woj. Um, we really want Zion. Can you tweet that we want Zion over Ingram because that's what we want to do? Like, I really want it to happen, so let's tweet it. Like, that's not how you get deals done. So, if anything, that it's either a smokescreen to once again get Boston or Brooklyn to be like, oh crap, Portland's talking to New Orleans. They really want Scoot. Like we might lose out on Scoot if we don't make a deal with them, right? Or it's New Orleans is frustrated because they aren't getting very good offers for Zion, and they're trying to drum up more interest to get the second pick from Charlotte because it came out today that Charlotte isn't interested in Zion, they're interested in Ingram, right? So like you can't believe any of this crap. Like why would any team just announce their intentions on who they want to sign in free agency or trade for in trades? Like it doesn't really happen that way. Now you get guys like Beal who has a no trade clause and he can basically force his way somewhere. So
It's essentially like Beal was a free agent getting signed and traded.
right. So he could have his list of this. Shams can report these four teams are in the running for Beal because those are the only teams he'll go to. So that's the only chance. And then it turns out that Beal didn't even accept any other team other than Phoenix, including Miami, who apparently had a much better offer. So yeah, it's just I like to me, if you're hearing a rumor like Portland's trying to get Zion or whatever, that means it's pretty much dead.
Yeah. Shouts to Tupug Shakur. Tupug Shakur. $5 dono says signing trading Grant and Ant 3 pick for OG and Siakam. Then trade Nurk future first for Turner or someone similar. Thank you for the dono.
Yeah, thanks.
But also so here's just my question, because whenever people bring up sign and trading a player with a pick, I always say this. The draft is before free agency. How do we trade the pick in the draft and also sign and trade Grant at the same time when we have to wait until after the draft, over a week after the draft, to sign and trade Grant? And we don't know if Grant is going to want to sign in Toronto. If we try and do that, he can just say, no, I want to go back to Detroit then. Like we can't choose where we sign him. So how would that feasibly work? Because it doesn't feasibly work. You can't sign and trade a player with a draft pick from this year's draft. In free agency, we could send a pick 2 years down the line and a sign and trade with Grant for something, but this year's draft's before this year's free agency. Thank you for the dono, though. Appreciate it. And then shout out Murray, $5 Australian dono, says, appreciate you, Eric, for that. Also, how optimistic are you guys on Nurk coming back more athletic and fit? Looking at his Instagram, etc., he looks slimmer. Yeah, I saw you talking about this today, Eric.
Yeah, Nurk looks nice. It's kind of a shame because I don't think people really. Oh, this isn't to say to feel sorry for Nurk or anything like that. I mean, obviously he makes millions of dollars to play a game, but when you snap your leg in half like that, it's not the easiest thing to like trust your leg ever again, or to like come back from rehab and fully get back to where you were. It takes several years to get your conditioning back together, to build up strength again in your legs and stuff like that. So I mean, it's like what, 3.5 years removed from it now, or maybe a little over 4 years removed from the injury. Um, it's not out of the realm of possibility that it took him this long to kind of get over that. But yeah, hopefully he's in shape, because last year it was weird because he seemed like he was getting into shape with like the Euro basket or whatever it was last. Is that what it was called? Euro basket, Euro Cup. What was it?
Eurobasket.
Yeah. It seemed like he was in shape, but then it also seemed like he came into training camp a little out of shape and stuff. So if he comes into training camp fit and agile, and yeah, I don't think you need him too skinny, but if he can run and jump a little bit better, have a little bit more energy, and stay locked in games longer, I think that's a good sign. If he's back on the team, it might not matter if we trade him.
Yeah. I mean, I like Nurk. I think he's underrated by this fan base. I don't know what's better, thick Nurk or skinny Nurk, because thick Nurk at times look like an absolute beast, but he needs to be mobile defensively, so I think skinny Nurk is better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even though he wasn't the best, like, was that 2017 when he came super skinny? It wasn't the best version of Nurk, but I still think it's better for him at this point of his career.
Yep. Gray Hughes Investigates, $10 dono. What's up, Gray? It's been a minute. Appreciate your dono. Says, I hope we rebuild and Dame wants to be a part of it when the dust settles. We know what he has said, but I think he wants to be here. Have you seen his house? Insane. Thanks, Gray, for the dono. That's some progress. That's some progress with rebuilding, but Dame still being here. I mean, Dame as a mentor, I think, would be nice. A rebuild not every rebuild looks the same. And rebuilding doesn't have to mean not trading future first. Like, rebuild is just a catch term, and it encompasses a lot. But what does a rebuild mean to you, Gray, is kind of what I'm curious about. Does it mean using the third pick and keeping all our future first and just going completely young and being bad on purpose? Or does it mean using the third pick and then whatever else we do to be good next year is fine? Because I'm okay with using the third pick than trying to upgrade with other assets elsewhere and trying to win next year. Next year's draft is not good as of now. That can always change. But it's not as good as this year's draft. And even if you tank and are the worst team all year, you look at Detroit, they have the 5th pick. So I'm not in favor of going the young route and like trying to be bad next year. I'm okay using the 3rd pick, drafting with the 3rd pick, drafting with the 23rd pick, drafting with the 43rd pick. But I want to try and be good next year.
Yeah. I mean, once again, you can disagree with this if you want to, but I'm pretty sure I speak for you, Tori, too. I do not want to do whatever route causes Dame to ask out.
Yeah.
So if keeping the pick means Dame asks out, yeah, I mean, don't just trade it for nothing either. But this is why we get these comments like, you guys are so annoying. You talk about all these moves from a year ago that doesn't make any sense now. It's not relevant anymore. Like, drop it, let it go, right? But every move that Cronin has made has put himself into this position where the Blazers either have to trade the 3rd pick in the draft or have to trade it and give away a good asset and possibly, watch another young player become a star on another team while we don't contend or something, right? And this is why it's so frustrating to Tori and I when we make a move and don't get any assets, or make a move and get all expiring contracts and don't have any contracts to trade this summer. This is what happens when that accumulates. And what happens is last summer, the Blazers, they decided to keep Sharp, right? They had traded for Jeremy Grant. Was a good first step, right? You got Grant at least, and you convinced Dame that Sharp was the man to keep him, right? Good. Perfect. Okay. But then you signed an injured Gary Payton II who had to have core surgery after you signed him, and you either didn't do a physical or you knew he was injured and you knew you had two players on your own team that had to have that core surgery, and it was a big deal for a long time, and they both were not ready for a while after that. So it makes no sense, right? And then you signed Drew Eubanks to be the backup center, which, like, once again, this is no fault of Drew Eubanks, but he is not the backup center on a contending team, especially a team with Nurkic as the starting center. So you needed to address issues, and instead of that, you went out and signed an injured player who barely played for us and didn't want to be here. Tori, I heard someone tell me that he was telling Golden State fans before the season even started that he was going to be back in Golden State and he didn't want to be here. So,
you know what, bro? Okay, hold on. Because your boy here got so much freaking heat for responding to GP2's podcast where he said he signed here for the money, like kind of tongue-in-cheek it seemed like at the time, but I tweeted out, I said, that's not exactly what you want to hear if you're a Blazer fan. And I got heat from a bunch of people saying all sorts of stuff. Bro, I was more right than even I thought. Because I was just like, oh, I mean, it would be nice for him to say something nicer. No, he really, literally
took the back.
Just wanted the freaking money and wanted to be back in Golden State the minute he signed that contract.
Yeah. Anyways, so, and then we have injuries. We don't address any of the issues all season, and then we trade away our starting small forward and don't get anything worth like a starting position for. They're all like project role players that weren't playing on their respective teams, and we expect Dame to be okay with that. And this is the problem. I don't think we were that far away last year. You make a couple good moves. Heck, signing Bruce Brown instead of, Bruce Brown came out after the finals and said he was like, it was still on his mind. It's still on his mind. He won the frickin' championship, and all he could talk about was how he wanted to go somewhere else, and they chose another free agent over him and all this stuff, right? If we just signed Bruce Brown or offer him that exact same contract, we are a playoff team. Not only that, we're not even a play-in team. We're a playoff team, for sure, top six, because we weren't that far off, and we got nothing from Gary Payton. We needed some depth and defense. Bruce would have provided that. It makes Denver worse because he was a huge part of their success. So these are things that add up. It's like one wrong move is the difference between Dame possibly being happy this year and not even requesting a trade out. And, maybe we don't have the third pick. Yes, there's all kinds of different things that could have happened. Someone could have gotten hurt that didn't get hurt. Someone who did get hurt might not have gotten hurt. If things are different, butterfly effect, you never know. But the whole thing is, it could have led to a situation where a couple better moves and we're in this position and have a chance to keep the pick, or we're in a different situation where we made the playoffs and had some success and just need to add one piece. So our pick conveyed here to Chicago this year, and now we have all our future picks without having to trade for them. And then, we could have re-signed Hart or whatever, or maybe we still make that trade and have the 23rd pick to trade this summer. And we have a lot of other, like, we could trade the 23rd pick and 4 future firsts for something good this year. And Dame's totally happy. And we have a young player. We still have Sharp. We still have Ant. We still have a future and all that kind of stuff. So it's not a case of, oh, you guys are choosing Dame over the third pick or whatever and a future. It's that we've chose Dame this whole time, and Cronin has forced the issue to the point where the most loyal person ever in Blazers history now maybe wants out because he can't fulfill any promises that he's made to him, and that's the frustrating part to me, that we're even in this position, because I would love to be talking about keeping the third pick and adding someone really good and making a good trade on top of that. But unfortunately, it's just it's just, like, any GM can make the team bad and tank. Like, that's not a skill. Like, I don't like giving Joe credit for tanking, because like that's the easiest thing you can do in the NBA. The hardest thing to do is find role players, and he's failed to do that. So unfortunately, it's just a case where even if we do rebuild and go the young route, we still have Joe Cronin and Chauncey Billups as our coach and GM. So is it really going to matter what we do?
Yep. Man, I'm stressed. John Doe says Eric spitting as always. Yeah, I mean, this is everything that's led up to this point. I don't even want to think about Dame asking out yet. Like, I don't want to stress myself out too much, because that's where a lot of the worry comes from. If there was not this whole Dame possibility of leaving hanging over my head, I would actually be excited.
Yeah.
And that's what has me stressed out. That's what has me worried, is like, how is the Dame thing going to play out? Because I know we're not getting back enough for him if he gets traded this offseason. It's basically a fact. Mm-hmm. And I don't want another 4 years of losing. I don't want that, man. We've already had to deal with 2 years of losing. I don't want to deal with another 4. Like, I just think about, like, what if we had a really good team just with the channel and everything?
Yeah.
You know, how much easier would it be to build the channel? How much more would all the work put into the channel pay off? Like, that sort of thing. Which, it's paid off, because this is an awesome community of people, and I appreciate every single one of you. But as a YouTuber, man, it's hard to cover a team that constantly loses and do post-game shows for 2 hours every game when you're tanking. Like, I want to have fun talking about a team trying to push for a home court advantage or a top 3 seed, top 2 seed, whatever, down the stretch run of a playoff series. I want a whole season filled with storylines that actually matter, that don't become moot because we end up having to tank. I don't want any more tankathon streams. I don't want any more tankathon sims. Like, I don't want that stuff, man.
Want it like this year. You held up for so long.
I did. And then the first roll, we were 11th best odds Wemby, and got up to 1 and got Wemby. So I was hoping that would be something that would be a little bit of foreshadowing. But I don't want that. And that's why I'm stressed. That's why I'm worried about this upcoming draft. This is the first time I've felt like there's a greater than 0 possibility that Dame isn't in a Blazer uniform to start next season. I can't even give people crap that think that Dame's going to leave. Normally I'd be like, haha, you fools think that Dame's going to leave again? Because they've thought he's going to leave like the last 6 off seasons. But at this point, I can't even say that, because it's possible. So, you know, that's just the downside. But like, I don't want you guys to be stressed, so I'm trying not to think about that potential reality. We had a stream where we discussed that potential reality like once, and Reddit was like clowning on us or something, and Twitter is clowning on us. Like, I'm trying to be optimistic going into this trade deadline, and it's very possible this team pulls off something really, really good. It's just, we are on the fence, and we don't know where it goes. What were you face palming for? I'm curious.
Oh, the person who wants to trade Dame and build around Scoot also complains that, or says, no more walk it up ISO slow playing no defense crap. You do realize Scoot was one of the worst rated players in transition. It doesn't make any sense, but he was, and also he's not good on defense either. So you're basically saying to trade Dame for another 6'2" point guard who doesn't play defense and is not good in transition. So yeah, okay, makes a lot of sense.
Well, the grass is always greener, so is what it is. If you don't want that, you should be asking for Amen Thompson then.
Yeah.
Because he'll get this team out and running.
Okay. He wants Miller or Amen. Okay. Fair enough.
Okay.
I guess it's Kyle that wants Scoot.
Yeah, it was Kyle that wants Scoot. I mean, I don't know. We're all stressed right now. Tempers are high, right? Like, chat's been arguing all stream. Twitter's been feisty. Like, I get it. All of us are stressed.
Okay.
But try to enjoy the process, I guess.
Here's the other thing, okay? People are now turning on Dame and making it like a bad thing that he wants to win in Portland or something. Like, yes, sure, it's not ideal to have this situation hanging over the team right now, but this guy wants to win in Portland. He has said, like, even when he gets asked, like, oh, of these 4 teams, which one would you like to play for if you had to be traded? He'll answer and say, but I still want to win in Portland or whatever later on. So, like, this guy wants to win in Portland. This guy with freaking Al-Farouq Aminu, Mo Harkless, CJ, and Enes Kanter went to the Western Conference Finals. Like, he had 50 points in a game. He had 55 against Denver. Almost single-handedly won us a game in the playoffs, with the rest of the team going like 1 for 19 in the fourth quarter and overtimes, and like had one of the most incredible games of all time. Laid his whole heart out there, and then you got CJ stepping out of bounds and crap, and Rocco missing 2 dunks, and frickin' they can't make anything. Get this guy some competent frickin' players, and like, how does no one think with a few good players, a couple of good moves, that this guy could not help at least try to make a deep run and contend for a championship? Like, I just don't understand. Like, yeah, Alex Wilson's bubble Dame was epic. That guy had to score like 60 because the team was sucking and no one could do anything. And that guy literally carried them on their back for 8 games to will them to the playoffs, and still almost missed the playoffs because of a freaking Karis LeVert jumper. But it's just like, how do people not? I don't understand how people can be so sure it's impossible to win without Dame. Like, he's a really freaking good player, and if you got him another good player to pair him with, and they already have several good players, you still have Sharp, so you have a future player. Like I just don't understand. I don't get it.
This is becoming a vent stream, which I guess we need to get it out now before the draft preview on Wednesday and the draft on Thursday. Antonio, $2 donut, says, fun fact, Scoot missed 6 of his 22 dunks in season. I mean, I think Scoot's terrific. It's just, if you don't want a backcourt, if you want a backcourt that plays defense, I don't really see saying you want to trade Dame so that you can have Scoot and Sharp, because neither have been proven to be good defenders. Like, if I had to bet long term, those guys are probably going to be a below average defensive backcourt. They have potential, maybe more potential than Dame and CJ ever had defensively, but potential defensively just makes it more frustrating when guys don't live up to it. I mean, just look at Nasir Little. So, and dude, I'm sorry. Dame is not a great defender, but he is not horrid either. He is fine. And in the course of the context of a good defensive team around him, he is fine. He is a very capable defender. He's not terrible or horrid. Like, you're just making that up. He's fine for what he is. For being a star, like, how many star guards are good defenders as well? They're very few and far between. Now, star forwards is different, but they got a lot more size. It's easier for them to be more impactful defensively, especially since a lot of those star forwards are, like, pretty dang athletic or quick-footed for their size. But like, a lot of star guards are not good defensively. When you got to carry an entire offense, it's really hard to have the energy to be a good defensive player. So like, for Dame and what he is, he's okay defensively. You know? Because when you have a player that good, you should just surround him with role players to help get the job done defensively and then help make it easier for him offensively. What's funny is, in that case, if you got two-way guys that make it easier for him offensively, he has a little bit more energy to give on the defensive end. Mm-hmm. So it's always been about team building. It's never been a Dame problem. It's always just been about who's around him.
I mean, like, Giannis at times in his career has been an incredible defensive player, but they had to trade for like Drew Holiday, and Brook Lopez becomes an all defensive player, right? And Chris Middleton's a good defensive player. You have to put good defensive players around a star offensive player.
Like a Drew Holiday, right?
Yes, they
because there's a comment.
They cannot maintain the offensive workload and give full effort on defense. It's just not possible. So, like, you have to have a good defensive team around him, or have an offense to where he doesn't have as much of a load on offense.
Because this Raptors Nation dude came in chat and said, Drew Holiday, prime Kyle Lowry, pre-injury Clay. Bro, none of those guys, other than maybe you could make a case for Clay, were as good as Dame. I don't think Clay was ever as good as Dame offensively. I don't think you can make an argument there. But Clay was an off-ball guy. Mm-hmm. He wasn't a guy that carried the offense the way Dame is. Drew Holiday is the guy you put next to a star.
Yeah.
He's one of those like really good role players that maybe can make an all-star game every once in a while. He's made 2 in his career, very far apart, because he's such a good role player. Kyle Lowry was a star, but he was never carrying the offense like Dame, bro. He was never carrying the offense like Dame. So that's just, the fact that you compared those 3 guys to Dame offensively is just silly.
And yeah, so it's different. Like Chauncey or whatever on the Pistons, they were all good. Like, none of them were a star or like having to shoulder the burden of the load. It was a team with several good players, and so you either need that or you need players. But yeah, so like Rich and I filmed an episode of Rip City Retro last night, and we talked about this. It came up. No one ever said crap about Dame's defense when he had West next to him. Like, it was never a problem. Like, no one said, "Oh, that backcourt can't win because they're not good enough defensively," or whatever. And Dame was a part of that. And he's been on top 10 defenses post West with CJ in the backcourt. So like I don't get it. Like, we brought up I saw that same clip of Jay Billis after we drafted Dame saying that he had upside as a defensive guard in the NBA too. So like he was supposed to be a good defender, and like we get comments like let me find it. Here. Oh, come on. Dame is my favorite player ever, but let's not pretend like he doesn't have defensive faults that are on him. Yes, okay, yes, we agree. He has defensive faults. No one said he's not perfect, or no one said he's perfect on defense. But what the whole point is, he's not like awful worst defender ever, but he's also not good. So like, but like there's an in between. It's not everything is trash or GOAT. Like, and yes, Michael Jordan is the GOAT. LeBron is either the GOAT or the second GOAT, right? Like, those guys are, no one in the league is those guys, right? Like, it's not even possible. So yes, I agree. Dame is not Michael Jordan. Congratulations. Great point. Like, yes, he's not Michael Jordan. So like, yes, you cannot handle that. So I mean, I don't.
What are we even talking about at this point, man? What happens if you have a GOAT in the trash? Who's that?
I don't know, man.
Shout out to BC $5 dono. Says, just showing rips #Rip City love. Thank you, BC. Appreciate you for the $5 dono, man. We need it. We're getting riled up tonight. Everything is trash GOAT. Yeah. So, okay, I guess I misinterpreted the Raptors guy's comments. I thought he was comparing Dame to those 3, and he was saying, like, those were the only examples. And, yeah, you know, there's always... I'm not saying there isn't a star guard that's also good defensively. I'm just saying, if you look at most of the star guards, especially right now, how many of them are looked at as good defenders? Like, I wouldn't look at SGA as a good defender. Like, he's okay. I wouldn't look at him as good defensively. James Harden, I wouldn't look at as good. Like, Zach LaVine isn't good. John Morant isn't good defensively. Donovan Mitchell is okay. I wouldn't say he's good. Neither is Darius Garland. Like, you look at all these star guards, how many of them are, like, you can sit there and say they're for sure good defenders?
Some of those people want Zion. He's not a good defender.
Yeah, like,
he's not a guard, but yeah.
Like Luka, is he a good defender? I mean, in today's NBA, I'm legitimately trying to think of a star guard in today's NBA that you can sit there and say is a good defensive player. So should we just not have star guards then? Like, Jimmy Butler is a good defender. He's a small forward, in my opinion. Like, he has small forward size.
Clay was also 6'8".
Yeah, like I'm talking about guards that aren't like 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", like wings.
Yeah, Drew's the only real lockdown.
Yeah, but he ain't like, if he wasn't a good defender, he wouldn't be considered a star. He's considered a star potentially because of his defense, if anything. So, Beal isn't a good defensive player. Booker's like okay now. He's improved, but I wouldn't say he's good. Like, Smart's not a star. De'Aaron Fox, I wouldn't say is a good defender either. Sacramento was actually bad defensively last year, despite how good they were. They were just good because of their offense.
So is SGA good on defense, or is he good because he's got Lou Dort and like good defender like next to him to where it masks some of his deficiencies?
Yeah.
Because once again, put the right players around Dame, and I don't think it's that big of a deal. Like it's not.
Alex Wolf says DeJounte Murray. I don't think he's a star. If you watched my video that I dropped earlier today, you would already see that I think that. Because I name dropped him, but I don't think he's a star. He was like a borderline all-star where he wouldn't have been a star if he wasn't so good defensively his final year in San Antonio. He was an all-star, but would he have been an all-star if he was an okay defender? You get my point? Like,
yeah.
And here's the thing. Would he have been a star if he wasn't playing for a terrible team? He goes to Atlanta, and all of a sudden, he's a role player. So, it's... And here's the thing. Here's the point I'm trying to make. When you have such a responsibility offensively, and you have to exert so much energy on that end of the floor, and then defensively, you're one of the smallest guys on the court, in order to be a good defender as like a 6'3", 6'4 guard, 6'2", whatever, you have to exert a ton of energy on the defensive side of the ball. And the problem is most guys, even if they're in great shape, can't do everything that they do offensively that their team needs them to do, and then have enough energy left over defensively to be like noticeably good on that end. Going against the quickest players on the floor, by the way. It's hard. Another star name that I didn't bring up that is actually terrible defensively is Trae Young. Since we're speaking about a guy on the Hawks and DeJounte. Like, that's kind of the problem. So, I hold Dame's defense in that context.
Yep.
Kyrie's not good on defense either. There you go. I mean, that's the thing, is you got to compare Dame's defense to those guys. You can't sit here and say, like, look at Pat Bev, look at Alex Caruso.
That's all they do is play defense.
Yeah, look at Jimmy Butler, who's like 6'6", 6'7".
But to that point, go out and get one of those guys so you have them on your roster and you can, play them sometimes when you need defensive stops. And we just don't make those kind of additions,
Yeah. And maybe there's a guy you can come up with that would be the outlier to the rule. But like, there's all these names. That's the general way it is with star guards. That's the general rule. An outlier or two doesn't explain that away. Mm-hmm. So that's how I've always looked at Dame's defense. The problem is if you don't have good defenders around him, then it's like, oh, we are just bad defensively and Dame's part of the problem. But if you have good defenders around him, then all of a sudden you have a team that's contending, probably. Because Dame can carry an offense. So it's just about, can you have enough guys around him to make sure that offense is consistently great? And can they play defense so the defense is also solid, at least? Maybe good. Just like we had when we had Aminu and Harkless. And those dudes were not good offensively.
Role players.
Yeah, but they were able to carry the defense enough. We were able to win with Dame, CJ, and Enes Kanter starting next to him. We were able to beat the Nuggets somehow and get to the Western Conference Finals. And it's because we had Zach Collins off the bench. His defense was huge. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not like Seth Curry and Rodney Hood were even that great defensively. So that's where it comes down to team building. Just having the right pieces, the right role players, the right fits. And that's why I don't want to trade Dame. I just want to get him legitimate two-way players that can help on the defensive side of the ball, and then good role players and a good bench on top of that that can get the defense to average. Because I think if you have an average defense with Dame with like a more legitimate second star, maybe a Siakam or whoever, I think that team is for sure a playoff team and a team that could maybe win in a playoff series against anyone. And then you're talking about like, well, maybe this team could contend.
Make a couple smart moves at the deadline instead of tanking, and all of a sudden you're a contender maybe.
Figure out what's holding you back from contention maybe and address those at the trade deadline. Exactly. So that's the route I want to go. I mean, the alternative is, you're years away and you have to hope guys pan out. That might not.
Yep. And Chad has a great point. Steph had Iggy, Clay, Draymond, Bogut, Sean Livingston, Durant, all good defenders. Draymond Green and Andrew Bogut, when they played together, that was one of the best outside of like some of the teams back in the day that used to be a much more common thing. But those two together in the kind of the modern era were the best help defending duo power forward center I had seen in a long time. Those guys were tremendous. They were so smart. They were always in the right position to help, never overhelped. They were good at trapping. They were good at protecting the rim. They were good at cutting off drives before they even got to the rim. And they covered for each other well. We started to see that a little bit with Zach when he was playing the four in some of those lineups, bigger lineups. But unfortunately, that ended really quickly into that season, that next season when he was supposed to be the starting four. But yeah, you need those players. You need them. And the Blazers simply have not been able to add those type of players. And so we're talking about a team that, like, Jeremy Grant, who's not that good, in my opinion, at doing point of attack type stuff, and Anthony Simons were our best point of attack defenders last year. Like, that can't be the case moving forward, where those guys like that, two of your three best players are also your best point of attack defenders, and they're not even that good at point of attack defense.
Yeah.
Get someone who is.
There's a comment. It says, I don't understand why you would give up the next 10 years for 3 years of possible success and probably not win. Trading the third pick doesn't mean giving up on 2032. Here's the thing. If rebuilds take that long, then why do you want to rebuild? Like, you know what I'm saying? You can't even trade picks that far out in the future. How is trading the third pick and like trying to win right now giving up the next 10 years from now? I don't understand it. Like, that's the thing is we twist logic and say things like that to try and support the notion that we need to rebuild, but it doesn't make any sense. 10 years of Scoot on the team. Guess what? If you rebuild like 4 years from now, guess what? You can get the next Scoot and have him instead for 6 of those years. And it cancels out. Like you're acting like we wouldn't.
24.
Yeah, you're acting like we wouldn't have another chance at a good prospect in the next decade if we try and win right now.
Yeah. And like George says, we don't even know if Scoot's going to be there at 3, so what does it matter? So
yeah,
Scoot goes 2, then what's your plan, Kyle?
Because Scoot's the betting favorite to go 2. And here's the thing, if it doesn't work out, you can trade away Siakam if you re-signed him. I don't think they would trade for Siakam unless he's going to re-sign, but that's the thing. You can trade away Dame 3 years from now and maybe get back just as much, because like the way the market is right now, you're not going to get back much. Okay, you can trade away Siakam then. You can trade away Simons then. Maybe Simons will have more value because he'll be more established by then, right? Like, you can always hit the reset button whenever you want. I mean, just look at Washington. They got nothing back from Beal, but they're still hitting the reset button. Maybe they should have just played hardball, but they hit the reset button. They said, screw it, let's do it. Let's rebuild. You can always hit the rebuild button. And not hitting the rebuild button and trying to win doesn't mean screwing yourself over 10 years from now. The Brooklyn Nets had like none of their picks because they traded them to Boston unprotected. They still went from like a bottom feeder whose picks were at the top of the draft that they didn't get. Boston was getting Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown because of that. They still turned themselves into a playoff team when they had D'Angelo Russell and other pieces because they made shrewd, smart moves. And then, they got lucky, or maybe it was unlucky. They got KD and Kyrie signed there, right? Like, things can change quick, even if you trade away future first. Like, you're not giving up 10 years down the line just by trying to win now.
Yep. So Gray says, if we just had Jerome Kersey, we would be much better. Okay, so go find a Jerome Kersey level player. That's much easier to do than finding the next Dame. Even if you have the third pick, it's still much easier to find Jerome Kersey level players. And that's no disrespect to Kersey. He's one of my favorite Blazers of all time. That guy was freaking amazing to watch and just left it on the court every time. But the Blazers don't have those kind of dogs. That's what they need. They need those players that do all the dirty work, that hustle and do that kind of stuff. They have not had those very often since that 2015 team got broken up. And they need those kind of guys who show up and play and lay it out on the line every game and just do whatever it takes for the team to win. And so that is the GM's job, to go out and find those guys. And I would love to see Dame play with a Jerome Kersey type player before we trade him away and don't ever get to see him have that opportunity to play with a Jerome Kersey level player and see what that could have done. And who knows, maybe Dame just hasn't sped up the pace because no one plays at a fast pace that he's played with. Like maybe he should be getting out on the fast break more. Maybe if he had more athletic players, he would. But yeah, I don't understand why you think we need a player like that, but don't want to try and add a player like that. You just want to blow it all up and change it. I don't know.
Yeah. And we got to stop us. I don't know how many times I got to say this. We got to stop assuming Scoot's going to be there at 3.
Yeah.
It's more likely this, in my opinion, it's more likely Scoot goes number 2 than anyone else. Okay. And that's because I think Charlotte is just going to draft the best player available and draft Scoot if they keep number 2. But it's very possible they could trade that pick for a team that wants to trade up for Scoot. I think it's more likely Brandon Miller's available at 3 than Scoot Henderson is. We got to stop assuming Scoot's going to be there at 3. Scoot is the betting favorite to go number 2 now. Read however much you want to into Vegas betting lines, but he's the betting favorite for number 2. So we just got to stop assuming that Scoot's an option, because he's not in our control. He might be, but he definitely might not be. So my gut feeling says Scoot goes number 2, and then we draft Brandon Miller at number 3, and then obviously I'm a root for him, but the second Brandon Miller has a good game, people are going to say, see, Tori, you were too low on him. So that's going to be fun. That's what I'm expecting. And then either Cam Whitmore goes number 4 or number 8. Because it seems like his draft stock is all up in the air. Some people think Houston might take him at 4, and Jonathan Gavoni thinks that he might fall to 9. In his latest mock draft, he has Cam Whitmore at 9 to Utah. So the drafts, nobody even knows anything outside of Wembanyama. It seemed like Whitmore was a safe pick to go 5 to Detroit, but now it's apparently Jarris Walker. Nobody knows anything. It's okay to not know. It's okay to not know. Is this ASMR now?
Yeah.
Anyway, questions or any rumors you want to talk about or anything you want to address in chat? Or...
We haven't had a chance to talk about the Porzingis rumor. What do you think of Kristaps Porzingis story?
Oh, God. Why? He doesn't fix the perimeter defense. He is not a rebounding upgrade over Nurk. He's injury prone. He's better than Nurk, but not better enough where you should give up 3 for him. That would just be a mistake. Mm-hmm. That'd be a mistake. Now, if you got, this isn't possible because they make too much salary to match, but, hypothetically, if you got a Siakam who's a little questionable shooter as a 4, getting a little bit more of a stretch 5 would make sense fit-wise. But
Well, here's the problem. Once again, hate to keep bringing it up. Sorry for those people that are going to leave a comment. Um, if we just had Wiseman's contract right now, we could match two big salaries like that. But now we can't even make a trade work to bring in two of those guys. So that's one of the. The problem is, like, we're gonna probably hear, oh, they're just a trade just didn't happen. We were close, but nothing materialized, right? And we had to keep the pick. We decided it was more valuable than any trade we could have made it, right? We're gonna hear that, right?
Yeah.
And then we're going to then realize later on that they could have had like Porzingis and Siakam, like you said, but they didn't have the contracts to make it work. But they would have been able to make it had they had the contracts. And unfortunately, that's just the position they're in. And they could have gotten those contracts and done something to have some salary for next year, but they chose not to. And now we're stuck in a situation where we have to, get one of those guys. And that's why OG becomes important. That's why Jaylen Brown he makes slightly less than the minimum. So it is possible to get him and one other big time player. It'd be really difficult to pull off, but it is possible. But Bridges, Jaylen Brown, OG are the three guys that we've been talking about a lot that have a lower contract that could match with the contracts we could trade out, basically trading out everyone but Dame, Sharp, and that's it, right? Dame and Sharp, and then re-signing our own guys.
Yeah.
We could match on one of those three and a max contract, but we can't do both with like both max contracts. So unfortunately, we're kind of in a situation where we're kind of limited on what we could do, even if two awesome trades presented themselves that could be molded into one, like you're about to talk about, where maybe the 8th pick goes somewhere else and the 3rd pick goes to Washington, but we get something good because they're sending a third team. So
yeah, like that's been a problem, the fact that we don't have another contract, because even if it's not for two players, supposedly Anthony Simons doesn't have as much value as he should across the league, which doesn't really surprise me, but like the Ringer had him as the 86th best player. I think he was the lowest rated 20 point per game scorer, unless Terry Rozier averaged 20 points per game this past year, but I mean that's Terry Rozier in Charlotte. Like Anthony Simons should be treated as like a lottery pick in this year's draft, like a high pick in this year's draft. Mm-hmm. Because I think if he goes to somewhere he's the lead guard, he becomes a star. I still think Anthony Simons will make an all-star game or two at some point. And he's a phenomenal shooter, can play on or off the ball, like fits in lineups, improved defensively, is still improving in pretty much every area of his game. But basically it becomes a situation where for trades involving a player making like $33-34 million or more, you pretty much have to trade Simons. And if that team doesn't value him, then basically you're having to treat Anthony Simons as a throw-in for salary matching purposes because you didn't get another contract. Mm-hmm. Because you can't match like Wiseman with Nurk with Nas or something, or Wiseman with Nas, or like you have more options for how you can formulate a trade if you have that extra contract. So that's why me and Eric were mad when they passed up on James Wiseman, not only because I think he could have potentially been our backup center, maybe even our starting center in the future if we didn't think Nurk could get it done, but also that contract would have been value to have on the books. It's just, it becomes a situation where like Anthony Simons has to be traded for a lot of these super big salary players. And if a team doesn't really value Anthony Simons, like, dang, we could have kept him if we just decided to take on Wiseman at the deadline. Mm-hmm. So it becomes a situation where you're mismanaging assets a little bit because you didn't give yourself the flexibility of having that extra contract. So Definitive One says, can we use a lot of smaller contracts? I mean, here's the thing. If you're trading for somebody making like $37-38 million a year, you're having to trade out like $30 million. Like Keon, almost $3 million, Knox at $3 million, Nas at $6 million. That's like $12 million. You still have to make up $18 million, right? Like you throw in Nurk and minimums, sure, you might be able to get there without matching Ant, but without using Ant to match. But it becomes very iffy and very close. and also you're giving up your starting center. It makes things more difficult. So if you're talking about a player, I think there was a player in the $40 million range that I was looking at where we'd have to trade Ant. Mm-hmm. But if you're looking at,
like Paul George or something.
Yeah. Paul George was like a guy. People brought up Paul George. You'd have to trade Ant for him.
Mm-hmm.
Paul George is the type of prospect that makes sense to trade the third pick for, but not Anthony Simons.
Yeah.
And just add Paul George to kind of what we have, but you'd have to trade Ant for him. Just to match salary.
Yeah.
Or you'd have to trade Sharp on top of Nurk, Nas, Keon, Knox, Wofford, Walker, Williams.
Yeah. I was, doing the math. You could make it work with every tradable contract for Porzingis and Jaylen Brown, but you couldn't make it work for Porzingis and Siakam and stuff. So, fortunately, we just don't have enough small contracts.
Yep.
DJ Vega was saying earlier to trade for Zion while he makes $13.5 million. He's on a poison pill contract, so it actually counts as $30 million going out, and only the 13 million going out, but 30 million coming in or something like that. But it's in Portland's cap situation, it's almost impossible to trade for Zion under this current league year rules. So we'd have to wait till the new league year.
Yeah, and if you watch a certain segment from a certain platform on Bleacher Report that had a lot of trade ideas, just know that a lot of the ideas involved in that segment actually don't work under the CBA, despite the trade machine saying it does, because cap holds were turned off with said trade machine. That's why I always do the math myself, and just could kind of do mental math at this point because I've done it so many times. That's why I always try and do the math myself and don't rely on trade machines to tell me that something works or something doesn't. So if any of you watch that segment and think certain trades in that are doable, there's multiple trades that don't work in there.
Like a $16 million trade for Zion.
Yeah. So the thing is people bring up Gafford. Gafford's not on a poison pill. There's rules around it. Gafford's contract goes up a lot, but it's not a poison pill. Zion's contract is a poison pill, so the matching rules are a little different. Zion, this year, plus all the years of his contract, are averaged and then divided by that many years. Well, that's basically what an average is. So it's, going to be in the $30 million range. Mm-hmm. Can we trade picks without trading players? Always compete. I answered it in the chat earlier. Yeah, we can trade picks without trading players.
But we can't trade picks for players unless they're making less than $8.4 million. So
yeah. Anything above that, since we don't have a trade exception bigger than that, we have to match their salary by trading players out. But you can always trade, 3 for 6 and 11 hypothetically.
Yeah, or future picks or something.
Anyway, chat, you got questions? We'll answer questions for the rest of the stream. We're 2 hours in, so...
Yeah. I mean, technically, I guess you could... using the third pick as salary, the only thing I'd say to that, I guess, is you could... I mean, normally it sucks because most teams want their guy to play Summer League, get in their system, and not have to just sit around for 30 days and not be able to contact the team or whatever, even though they probably would. But, so I guess, if New Orleans really wanted Scoot so bad, you could force them to wait the 30 days so you could use the contract, sign him, and then you have to wait 30 days to be able to trade him. So I guess that's the only real way to make it work, but without specifying that or making it part of the trade, I don't know if a lot of teams are going to do that. But if I'm Cronin, I would maybe try to leverage that for a team that really wanted him. But if we're talking about we're scared of getting ripped off for the third pick anyway, it's not. I don't think we're going to have that good of negotiations to where we do that.
Pineapple says, how can we do Eric's Pelicans trade before free agency, or is that done after the draft?
That could be done anytime, but it's not. I mean, the Blazers aren't going to do it, unfortunately. For me, at least. I know you're not necessarily a fan of it, but... You cannot trade them for 30 days, so free agency starts 8 days after the draft. So
yeah, you can trade the rights to them before you sign them, but they count for no salary. Or if you sign them to their rookie contract, then you have to wait 30 days, and then whatever their first year salary is outgoing salary.
Yeah.
Whew. I'm excited to see what rumors come out tomorrow, because it's going to be an all-day thing. I mean, that's why you got to follow us on Twitter, because we'll tweet about stuff. You know, I know it's not as good of as a stream, but we'll tweet about stuff that happens. So,
I mean, the other thing is, if they didn't have a trade, they could, like, if it's Scoot or Miller, and then they could play them in Summer League, hope they dominate. Maybe they win MVP in Summer League, and their value's at an all-time high, and then, you know, it's about the time where they could be traded anyway. Like, maybe you do something like that, and it's you trade them later in the summer, even though you don't have a trade necessarily lined up, but that's a huge risk.
Yeah. Kind of be like what the Cavs did with Andrew Wiggins for Kevin Love.
Yeah.
Shout out to Lucas DeBias with a 22 random. Says, imagine a team build in draft. Point guard is Scoot. Shooting guard is Sharp. Small forward is Miller. Power forward is Murray or Clowney, the 23rd pick. And center is Najee or Vukcevic, 14th pick. Cap salary to invest in an all-star in 2024. No all-star is going to join that team, bro. Thank you for the dodo, but that team is a bottom feeder next year. That team is a bottom 5 team next year.
And once again, we're not getting the second and third picks in the draft.
Yeah. As a hypothetical, though, like, Blazers can't get all-stars even when they have good teams, so they can't sign players when they have good teams. How are they going to be able to sign an all-star when they have a bottom 5 team? Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. So, shout out to Pim Arose. $10 dono says, I thought the Kings versus Golden State in the finals was best series. What was your favorite series? Kings versus Golden State was fun. That might have been my best series as well, because it was interesting. The defending champs dynasty versus the team that hadn't made it in 20 years.
Kings
the storyline was cool.
Hype. Yeah, hype.
Yeah, crowd was fun.
Beam. Yep, that was fun. I agree.
I didn't watch as much playoffs as I wanted to, though, to be honest with you, so I don't really have a great answer.
I mean, the Miami-Boston series wasn't great, but, I mean, just the whole intrigue of if Miami was going to be the first team to blow a 3-0 lead and stuff, that was pretty crazy. But overall, stressing. I agree that the Kings versus Golden State, I was really disappointed in the Suns-Nuggets series. The Suns come back and tie it 2 games apiece, and I thought that was going to be just a battle the way out, and then Denver just wins the next 2 games, and the series is over. But I was really hoping that one went 7. That would have been a cool Game 7 to watch with Durant and Booker, and maybe Chris Paul is back by Game 7, and the way Jokic was playing in these playoffs, that would have been fun, but it didn't materialize. So, yeah, I'd have to agree that Kings versus Golden State was my favorite.
Yeah. I shouldn't respond to this comment, but I will. If Portland cleaned up the city and made a better nightlife, maybe players would sign here. Players don't even live in Portland. They live in, like, Lake Oswego or Tualatin, where the practice facility is. Like, that's not Portland. And Portland, whether you agree with how they're doing it or not, is trying to clean up the city. So, even when it, whatever issues you have with the city wasn't as bad, we still weren't signing anyone.
And take politics out of it, but I have no problem with partying, right? Whatever. But I don't want free agents that only want to come here or go to a city because of the nightlife. To me, that signifies that they're not 100% dedicated to winning in basketball. So if a free agent told me, oh yeah, I only want to go to this city because of the clubs, I'm not signing that player. I'm like I'll sign someone that says I don't care about the nightlife. I just care about basketball, right? And that's one of the reasons. Like Olshey was big into that. Dame's big into that. That's one of the reasons why they were so confident in Sharp panning out last year was because that like they just knew that it would happen. So DJ Vegas says Jimmy Butler did though. Like Jimmy though tried to make it work at several different teams and cities. Like he got traded to Minnesota. He tried to work there. It wasn't his fault that he was playing with a bunch of guys who wasn't at his level of doing that. So yeah. I'd rather take my chances with guys who like care about basketball and not care about how many times they can go out during the season and what. Because, I mean, they're on the road most of the season anyway, so who cares?
Yep. Shout Colonel Pancakes, $5 dono says, thanks, Eric, I'm back on. Good job playing mod while streaming.
Yeah, I don't know why you got banned, but just maybe you said something to the wrong person or something. I don't know, but...
Or maybe it was misinterpreted, or maybe YouTube's glitching, I'm not sure. Maybe I misinterpreted
it was on
something
Discord.
or a mod did.
Discord.
Oh, on Discord?
Yeah.
Oh, I can actually go back and... When did that happen?
I don't know.
I can go back and look at the logs. No. Oh wait, no, that's unbanned. I was like, you banned him.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, you banned him 12 minutes
ago. I accidentally banned him before, but
yeah, I don't know. We have bots that like try and clean up our Discord, and sometimes people will get timed out by a bot. Like an actual bot, not a Trevin. So that might have been what happened, but we don't, just as long as you don't come spamming stuff or saying hateful stuff, we're not just gonna ban you.
Well, there's people that come in and it's just a dead tell every time because they tag admin. So yeah. maybe Colonel Pancakes, you tagged at admin. It's just an auto block. I'm sorry. There's no reason for anyone to ever tag admin in Discord. So
yeah. If you join our Discord, by the way, if you want to join Discord, link in the description box below. But if you join our Discord, don't go in and tag at admin at like 3 a.m. Or you're just gonna be gone.
And it's not even with an admin question. It's like, at admin, Dame needs to be traded right away.
Yeah. Yep. Some long copy pasted message we've seen 10 times already. Yeah, it's fun stuff, man.
Sorry, AJ, you are getting a timeout.
Oh God, what did AJ do this time?
He was saying Carmelo Anthony MVP, Keita Bates Diop MVP, Kevin Knox MVP.
Dude, he messaged me in the middle of the night to say Carmelo Anthony MVP. This dude, AJ, I thought we were past this, bro. Jake Carey says, thoughts on Colin Castleton at 42. I've watched him because I watched quite a bit of Florida over the years. Just seems like that one of those bigs that goes in the second round that never really becomes anything, is just kind of and then is on the end of a roster and then falls out of the league in like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I actually like some of his skills, post moves. I think he's fairly tough. The Florida team wasn't the greatest, so it's hard to tell how much of that was on him. But I think it's going to struggle. I think he's the type that would have a long career playing somewhere overseas, but I don't know if he's NBA level, so I wouldn't take him in the middle of the second round.
Jake, we haven't heard from you this entire draft process, and you are one of our draft guys. So who do you like in this year's draft, and who are you low on? Because I have no idea what your opinions are on this year's draft, and that's rare. So I'm curious. Also, who do you have higher? Who do you like more as a prospect, a Men or Brandon Miller or Scoot Henderson? How would you rank those guys? I'm curious as well. Is James Najee at 23 a reach to you guys? Yeah, a little bit. I'm not high on it. I think he'll be a role-playing big man. I just don't think skill-wise he's ever going to be more than just a basic role-playing big man.
I have no problem with it if we're tearing it down, full rebuild. But I mean, they had, we had Baji on the team last year as a two-way, never even got into a game. So I don't know how quickly Najee's going to be able to contribute in the NBA if we're trying to win. I just think that's kind of a wasted pick.
Yeah. I'd rather just swing for upside. Or if you're going to go for a role player, go for like a role player that has more upside as a role player. Like, I think Najee will be a solid to good defender in the NBA. And, like, I don't know. I actually just watched a decent amount of tape on him.
If you trust those measurements he just sent over to NBA teams.
He looks smaller than that, though.
I know, he does, but he measured well. It might have been some smoke and mirrors there, but they said it was an official, like, I don't know if they had a representative there or what, but yeah.
Low on Anthony Black, Cam Whitmore, Keontae George, and Hood Schifino. I'm low on Whitmore and Hood Schifino. I'm a little bit lower than consensus on Black, but not. I just like other guys more. Keontae George is super boomer bust, so I understand being anywhere on the spectrum with him.
I'm way low on Anthony Black. I like the other three guys.
Yeah, I don't really get it with Hood Schifino, to be honest.
Oh, why not?
Struggles to shoot the three ball, not super explosive or athletic, doesn't have great finishing numbers, like just feels busty to me.
He's like
feels like a Michael Carter Williams type of guy, maybe better shooter because he's a better mid-range shooter for sure. I know he has that mid-range shot, but I don't know, just the lack of athleticism, finishing, and three-point shooting ability combined is worrisome for me.
Eric Olson, why do you say that every freaking stream? Is that supposed to be like a knock on me that I like people who can shoot? Like, anyways, yeah. I kind of look at him like on offense at least, a bigger, he's got 6'10" wingspan, Jalen Brunson. He gets his shots the same type of way. I just think you can be effective with that. He uses his body super well. I think his three-point shot is fine. I'm not worried about it becoming okay enough later because his form is decent. But just the way he took over games and willed that Indiana team to win, are just really impressive towards the end of that season.
Yeah. I understand him, like, outside the lottery. I don't understand, like, the buzz where some people have him as, like, the 9th pick.
Yeah.
I don't understand taking him that high compared to other guys on the board. Tori, respect hyphenated names. I respect Olivier Maxence Prosper, okay? Just have to have the hyphen in the first name. Although I don't want to trade for Karl Anthony Towns, so I don't know. Who are you high on, Jake Carey, like in that range? Because I'm curious. I'm curious how much we agree. Because me and Jake go way back before I even started the channel. And Jake always dives in super deep on the drafts. And I'm always curious what his thoughts are. Just rare that I'm able to catch him. But we always seem to disagree. So I'm wondering if this year because he said men over Miller. So I was a little pleasantly surprised, because most people disagree with me on that. So I just want to see how much we agree. Portland 77 says, Oscar Shibwe, he gave a great workout interview. Not sure what his projected draft range is. I think he goes undrafted, but I would love to get him on a two-way just as a culture guy.
Yeah.
For that G League team, that new G League team, and then being up with the NBA, just a guy that's going to battle and practice. Like,
rebounding is a lost art for him. He's elite at it. It's an elite skill he has. I'm not sure if he's going to do anything else well in the NBA, but just as a rebounder, definitely worth undrafted free agent or two-way. But yeah, I don't think you can take him at like 43. So
Yeah. I would rather have him like over Timmy.
Oh yeah, for sure, 100%. I don't think it's close in my mind.
I would love to have Timmy just because it's Drew Timmy, but as a player, I'd take Shibwe. Lucas Tobias, 11 Rand donation. We went from 22 to 11. Still appreciate it though, man. Thank you, Lucas. All these trade possibilities, the one I think is the best would be Grant, sign and trade the Little and Simons for Siakam and Anunoby without involving picks. Siakam and OG want to leave Toronto. Toronto doesn't do that. Toronto would rather just risk them walking for nothing.
Why would they want Grant if they're trading OG and Siakam? Grant's pretty close in age to Siakam, so...
Jake doesn't like Prosper much at all. Don't see much else beyond chasing shooters and decent relocator on offense. I like the way he guards the ball. I like the way he guards guards. I think he's versatile defensively. I mean, basically, I look at how good of a defensive team Portland was when they had two guys that could defend four positions. And with that 23rd pick, I want Portland to find a guy that maybe has the upside to guard four positions and hopefully provide something, anything offensively. And with him, with his, solid athlete, 3-point shot isn't good, but it's okay. Like it's enough to put some stock in him being an okay NBA 3-point shooter. And then I like the defensive upside he has as a guy that can guard four guys. That's why I like him for 23. Because I think Portland, it would help them a lot to have a forward with some length that can actually defend on the ball, especially when you got Chauncey Billups, who seems dead set on putting length on the ball because that's what bothered him back when he played. So I like Omax for that role. Leonard Miller, if he fell to 23, would be great for that role as well, even though I think he's a little bit more iffy defensively than Prosper. I think he has a lot more offensive upside.
My problem with Prosper is one of the worst off-ball defenders in the draft, so if he's not on ball, it's going to be tough to minimum or to... I don't know what you do with him.
Yeah, I mean, how much of that is just lack of reps off ball? How much of that can be taught?
I mean, he doesn't...
Because he got matched up against stars all year.
Yeah, but for his size, he doesn't block any shots. He's...
I don't care.
Constantly late helping. Falls asleep a lot. Very undisciplined. On ball, I feel like he gets on his back feet too much. But in college, he was long enough to recover. I don't know if that's going to be quick enough in the NBA. He seemed to get his legs crossed up a lot. Yeah. And I'm not really a fan of his jump shot either.
Why don't you like his jumper?
He's got like a dip is okay, but his is like really low. Like he takes it way down and it takes a long time to get it back up. It's really slow release. He has to be like wide open to shoot it.
Yeah, but for like a guy like that though, is that much of a problem where it's like you just want defenders to respect him enough to not leave him because his value is going to come on the defensive end, and then if defenders leave him, he'll have enough time to get it off regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I don't know, but I mean, it's not like if he shot well and it was like he had bad form, like Sean Marion or something, that's fine if he's hitting it, but he didn't exactly shoot well. But
did he have a higher percentage than Hood Shafito though?
I don't know what his percentage was.
33.9% for Prosper, 33.3% for Hood Shafito.
Yeah. But I mean, all of Max Prosper's were like wide open threes for catch and shoot wide open, whereas Shafino's are all on ball, off the dribble, pick and roll type threes. But I will say he's a tremendous cutter, one of the best cutters in the draft. So that's a positive, I guess, if he cuts more often than spots up. And Omax Prosper has one of the weirdest stats I've ever seen, Tori. Have you looked at his free throw rate?
No, not his free throw rate.
It's over 50%. It's like 51% or something. And his usage rate is under 20. Like, there's not many players that
That's actually wild.
like, I don't understand how that's possible. Like, Reese and I looked this up the other day because I was telling him about watching some games, and there are not many players over 6'8" that had that low of a usage and that high of a free throw rate. So that it's just like,
He uses a lot of pump fakes.
yeah.
And I saw your comment like, oh, if he went against, our defenders, they would foul out with how many pump fakes they'd bite on, if he went against Eubanks and Wofford.
Yeah.
So
They're just, it's just weird. He's got like some tremendous positives, but some like really bad negatives. So it's like, but I mean, if you're looking for like a role player, I guess you can make it fit. But yeah, if you're talking about trying to hit a home run, I'm not sure if he's going to be anything more than a role player.
yeah, I don't think he's going to be much more than a role player too. It's just with the tools, I could see him being that versatile forward defender. Definitely some things to clean up, but that's the type of archetype that I feel like the Blazers need off the bench. I think they need a point of attack defender in the starting lineup, and they need a versatile defender on the bench unit. I don't really know if there's anybody else that will likely be available at 23 that really fits that archetype.
Mm-hmm.
Because most guys aren't going to be big enough to play the 4. Like, Jaime Hawkes is not big enough to play the 4.
Right.
His standing reach is, 3.5? Isn't that what CJ's was? Like, he's undersized for the 3, in my opinion. Like, G.G. Jackson, maybe, but there's so many red flags with him. Like, I don't feel comfortable betting on that actually being a thing. I mean, maybe the closest you could get is Jordan Walsh, because he measured in pretty well. Really well, actually. So, maybe that's the guy to look at, but he has flaws in his game, too, so.
Chris says, as someone addressed solely based on names, Max is an all-star. Yeah. He's destined for greatness because of his name.
So Jake, the two guys I like Buffkin a lot. I like Andre Jackson Jr. a lot as a role guy in the right situation. Those are kind of my two draft crushes.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible, Gray, but for everything I heard, we're not interested at all at trading back. We're looking to trade that because it lowers the asset we have, so.
Would you take Jordan Hawkins if he was available at 23? Yeah. I mean, that's just good value at 23, so I wouldn't shy away.
That's what I was going to say is I wouldn't reach on a guy that was lower on my big board just because it's a better fit. I'm just, even if it's a guard or a wing, like Jet Howard or something, if he fell, I'm taking them at 23. Leonard Miller would be the only kind of big. I'd still take Chris Murray maybe, but I know you don't like him.
Yeah,
but yeah, I'm just taking best player. I don't really care about necessarily trying to make it fit.
I just feel like if you look at the past 10 to 12 years and you look at sleepers, right? Like guys who are ended up outperforming their draft stock that were drafted from like 20 to 40 or 50. Sure, you have an outlier like Jokic, but for the most part, I feel like a lot of the guys that outperformed their draft stock, it was because they had something offensively, but they looked like a guy who would be iffy offensively, but they had some defensive tools, became good defensively, and then the offensive skills kind of blossomed into something, right? Like Draymond, even more recently, Herb Jones was a guy, Bruce Brown was a guy, DeAnthony Melton is a guy. Like, I feel like those are the guys who end up getting drafted too low, and that's where it's like, sure, I could see having, Prosper lower on big boards, but I could easily see it being a situation where, okay, well, he ends up going 28th then and outperforms his draft stock because he becomes, a guy that can defend 4 positions and knock down threes and is just a versatile, athletic defender. You even look at like Jaden McDaniels is a guy who's become a good defensive player, and he was taken too low. I think you can comfortably say at this point. So I always feel like those are the types of guys that get drafted too low, and I feel the same way kind of about Prosper if he goes late 20s to 30s, and I feel like Andre Jackson Jr. is going to be the same way as well.
Yeah, I see. To me, a lot of those guys fell because of age and perceived like kind of lack of athleticism or whatever. But almost every guy you mentioned has like really awesome work ethic. So it doesn't really matter. Like I don't know if it's hard to know. We're not in the front offices. We don't know that detailed of work ethic type stuff and things like that. So it's hard because Tyler James, you asked about Deron Holmes every stream. He went back to college. We've tried to tell you that, but hopefully you hear me say that Deron Holmes went back to Dayton. Yeah, it just comes down to like if a guy like Omax Prosper has like an insane work ethic, like sure he could become all those things, but it's also possible that he's not watching film right or something, and that's why he's not a good help defender. But yeah, I don't know. It's tough to know those things without being in the front office.
Yeah, I mean, like Jaden McDaniels is the type of guy going into the draft where you could look at him like, immature. Seems like the guy who might have a questionable work ethic, but defensively he's turned into a really special player. The immaturity's still there. He broke his hand punching a wall or whatever. So, yeah. But he would be really nice to have on this team right now. So, I don't know. Like I feel like that's the archetype too, where like I've been able to identify the most underrated guys, at least when I've tried to. That's the archetype I don't know. Like there's just certain guys that I get a feeling that they're going to be able to be enough offensively and be a really good player defensively that they're going to be a good role player. Like Andre Jackson is that guy for me in the second round.
Yeah.
Because even if he doesn't become a solid 3-point shooter, he has the size to play the three. Passing ability to read the game, does a lot of little things, cuts really well, rebounds really well. Defensively, I really like him guarding 3 positions. I don't know if he'll be able to guard the 4 in the NBA, but like all those traits, I think he can be a really good role player as is. But then if he's able to develop a 3-point shot, which I don't think his form is terrible. I feel like I end up saying that about a lot of guys that struggle, but his form isn't. He has some things that might not be optimal, but I don't think his shot is terrible. Where it's like, man, if he could just shoot the 3 to the point where guys would run him off the line and he could utilize his athleticism attacking with his passing ability, like that's intriguing to me. But that's just upside. Floor-wise, I think in the right team, like if you put him in Denver and he's able to just cut off Jokic, kind of be that secondary playmaker, rebound, play defense, I think he'll end up being a really good role player on a good team.
Yeah.
So, Chris says, Tori, would you take Andre Jackson at 23 if Miller, Omax, etc. are gone? I would take Andre Jackson probably over Omax. I would take Miller over both. I would consider Andre Jackson at 23. It just depends on who else is on the board and what else Portland did with the third pick. Like, if they took a men with the third pick, then I'm less hot. Like, I'm looking at different types of players. If they took Brandon Miller, I'd look more at Andre Jackson at 23. Like, it just depends on a bunch of things.
Yeah. And, it's about Dariq Whitehead. I think if he falls to 23, that's a guy you take for the upside and just hope that some of his athleticism after the injuries come back. I'd say the same thing about Nick Smith, similar to AJ Griffin last year.
I have a question though. Like maybe AJ Griffin's that guy, but has there ever been a guy like that who's fallen and like looked kind of zapped in college because of injuries, but then like those got resolved and he went back to who he was being in high school and was a steal late in the first round because of that? Is
The
there a guy that fits that in the past?
the problem is there's not a whole lot of, because the one and done is still a relatively new thing. So most of the time, a guy that struggled in his first year in college that was hyped would go back to school, and or he would have came out in high school, so he wouldn't have even seen the lack of athleticism, and then he might have been a bust because of that. But so yeah, I don't know. Um, yeah, Michael Porter Jr. People are saying that's not a bad one.
Yeah, but he's not good because he's athletic at all. You know, he's good because he can shoot.
Yeah, but I think Derek can shoot, and AJ Griffin could shoot.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, Derek can shoot. I'm just saying, like, the upside lies in him being able to regain some of that burst and athleticism he had in high school.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering if there's. It's going to be interesting to see him and Nick Smith, because those two guys fill that archetype, like you said, and it'll give us more of a sample on like these types of guys, because you can always look at like Harry Giles.
Yeah, it's different for bigs, maybe though. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's possible. I just think we need more of a sample with guys like that to accurately judge them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough. I'd maybe have to do some research. I can't think of someone, but yeah. I mean, I know plenty of players that were good in high school, struggled their first year in college, and then became better later on, but not necessarily because of injuries.
Yeah, I mean, I would take a swing on Derek too at 23. I wouldn't mind that. I'd be completely fine with that. I mean, if we need a guard, Nick Smith's there at 23. I wouldn't mind taking a swing on him too.
Yeah, like if we traded Ant.
Yeah, Ant for a forward.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't mind that. I just wish we could move up 5 spots, dude.
Yeah.
Because then maybe Buffkin falls all the way to, like, I think there is a chance Buffkin might fall to, like, 16, 17, 18. And I think he'd be really good as a third guard year one. Or Leonard Miller is more likely to be there. I don't know. I feel like there's a little bit of a drop-off between that range and 23. I don't think they're going to draft with 23, though. I think this is all kind of a moot point.
But the thing is, though, it seems like there's a lot of players that are moving up into, people are saying, oh, they're definitely going in this range now, and it's like that keeps having to bump players out somewhere.
Yeah. Somebody will probably fall. I mean, I made this prediction a little bit ago, a couple streams ago, but somebody will probably fall to 23 that we really, really want, and then they're going to trade the pick for future first back, and then they're not going to use those future first for anything this offseason, and we're going to, and then that player is going to be really good as a rookie, and we're going to be mad that we don't have him on our roster. Somebody clip this. I still need to get the bulletin board with the post-it notes, but that would be a lot to type out. So somebody clip this, post this in the clips section of the Discord. One of the mods or something. Aeromancer, if you're here, you're good with the clips. Because I would love to look back on this clip and see if I was right. Because that's always fun. And that's another reason why you should join the Discord. Who are some of those players that you've heard that recently?
Heard what?
Just like are moving up to be drafted in a range maybe above 23 that otherwise weren't looked at as being in that range.
I mean, this was early in the season, but Buffkin's obviously moved into like lottery range. Koulibaly is now, like, people are saying like 12 is his floor type thing. So he's moved up.
I think you can see Koulibaly as high as I don't know. He just seems like the type of guy that a team at like Orlando could fall in love with him and draft him at 6.
Mm-hmm. I'm blanking on who the other one was.
Leonard Miller kind of moved up after being underrated.
Yeah. But there's not room for all these players, so I don't...
Yeah. I don't know. Podziemski's moved up.
Yeah, apparently
he's 23 yet, but
I don't know. So I heard maybe he might have a promise, or I might be confusing with someone else, but someone that I didn't think would go until the late first at the earliest might have had a promise like around 19 or 20 or something. This is weird.
Yeah. You didn't know who that prospect was?
I forget. It was either Pods or someone like him that was in that range.
Maxwell Lewis.
No, it wasn't Lewis. I remember. Tyler James, that's what's the lowest Hendricks gets drafted. In my opinion, it's probably 10.
Yeah.
You could go
Yeah.
as high as maybe 6 or 7, the 10 range.
Yeah, 10 or 11. Like, there is a chance that the draft gets shaken up in the top 10 if, like, Koulibaly and maybe Buffkin or Casey Wallace gets drafted there.
Yeah.
And maybe Dallas has, I don't know, Asar's available there at 10 or something. And I don't know why Dallas would want him over Hendricks, but that's the thing is this draft, like, it's so good through the top 40 players that it's going to be fascinating to see who falls where. That I wish the Blazers were just a contender and not drafting at the top of the draft so I could just enjoy that part of it, because it's really hard. It's like everything's behind us. I'm used to everything being in front of us and us sitting there with like 1 second round pick and everything's happening. Maybe a guy can fall to us. That'd be cool. Instead, it's trade or Brandon Miller, it feels like at this point, because I do think Scoot goes too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what's funny about this draft is a lot of the guys that both me and you are high on have like risen up draft boards.
Yeah. Well, it's always tough. Because like I try to do it early, where like there's guys I like Hendricks and players like that like unfortunately Drawn Holmes went back, but I don't know. There's players that I fall for, and Leonard Miller is that way too. I've liked him since last year's process. It's just like, how are these players not? Lively was a guy that I really liked about halfway through the year. That was still like every mock draft had him falling to us at 23 or later. And it was like, oh my God, if we could get him at 23, that'd be so amazing. And now he's like, probably for sure going in the top 15. It's just it's tough that a lot of those guys like Buffkin or whatever like would be like a sleeper if he wasn't like promised, or Koulibaly might be a sleeper at 23 a couple months ago, but now he's going way higher. So like, it's just hard to play that process out.
I started singing Andre Jackson Jr.'s praises when he was borderline undrafted, like 50s in most mock drafts.
Yeah.
I started singing his praises then, and then he's moved up to like very early second now. Most of the time I see him between like 31 and 37. I think his floor is 37 because I think with Denver being there at 37, they will take him.
Yeah.
And I will be upset.
Yeah.
I will be upset because he could replace the Bruce Brown role long term.
Then you have a guy like Ben Shepherd who like kills it at the combine, and now all of a sudden like people are saying he's going to go in the first round and stuff. It's like out of nowhere. But that's another guy who could push someone else that's better or has been a more thought of prospect down.
Mm-hmm. Kobe Brown was another one of those guys that I liked and then started rising.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of stuff with him early 30s, but now like consensus has him back to mid 40s. If he's there at 43, I wouldn't mind taking him.
I think he's closer to that mold you were talking about earlier with the Draymond type, the guys who were overlooked a little bit than some of the other guys. Yeah.
Because if that shooting improvement is legitimate, he can kind of pass the ball a little bit. Like, he's intriguing offensively, defensively, big-bodied, kind of like Draymond. Yeah, Kobe Brown's a sleeper for sure. If he's there at 43 and we took him, I would be pretty happy with that. But that's the thing. When we see like guys that we're both high on and then they rise, it's like, yeah, we were right on them. It's if other sources and GMs or whatever come along to that thinking, it kind of is a little validating for us amateur scouts.
Yeah. It's weird for me because I've been pretty firm on this all year. Um, Ever since like early in the season, I started following Brandon Miller and just, I mean, I'm super high on Brandon Miller. I know you're not, but I had him at 3 pretty early in the season. Um, and then obviously Wemby and Scoot have been 1 and 2 on my board the whole time. And then I've had Amen and Asur like 4 and 5 this whole time. But I was like really high on Jarris. I was really high on Taylor Hendricks. Um, but like they're never like I'm not like I absolutely love them more so than maybe guys in my top 5. But we also like I'm not going to move them above top 5. And so yeah, it's tough.
See,
But my top 5 has not moved since like
yeah.
like
Who'd you say was your 5th guy?
Asur.
Asur? Okay, yeah, I mean, we agree on the top 5, just...
Different order.
Yeah, I got Miller at 4.
Yeah.
Asar at 5. I don't know. I legitimately am trying this year not to have my big board based on anything other than my own opinions on prospects, and I'm trying not to let consensus, like, determine what I think.
Well, it's like...
But, like, with a guy like Cam Whitmore... I think has serious potential flaws, but it's like there's no player below him where it's like I'm for sure above him on, and I don't know if that's because everybody's so high on him or what. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the guy I'm struggling with right now because I could see Cam Whitmore being a potential star. It's just I think he has some serious flaws, and I don't know. I don't know where to put him. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, I agree. It's Cam's tough for me. It's like I want to put him higher, but I also don't feel as confident as like my other top 8 players. So it's like, okay, should I just put him at 8 then? I definitely think he has higher upside than Hendricks, but like I'm much more confident in Hendricks becoming a solid NBA player than I could see Whitmer going either way.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you're filling out an upside big board, he's higher. If you're filling out like a safe pick big board, he's lower, you know? And that's the thing is you might be, depending on the team, depending on the pick, depending on the situation, you might be looking for different things. That's why, like, I could hypothetically have somebody higher on my big board, just my average big board, but for a certain team, like a different player more for them. Because situation matters, fit matters. Like, if I'm Houston at 20, I don't value Andre Jackson Jr. as much. But if I'm Golden State at 19, I value him a lot more. And that's just because of fit, role, need. And, you know, like if Jackson goes 20 to Houston, I don't think he becomes that good. I think it's kind of like Garuba. Like,
yeah.
What is, like, Garuba was hyped up as potentially an elite defensive player. I think if he went to a winning team, you know, a Golden State, a winning organization that develops players well, like I think he would be a good role player right now.
Same with Tara and Jabari last year.
Yeah, I mean, they figured it out, I guess, but I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? The situation definitely matters, so...
Dude,
you know, if Anthony didn't go to Portland, would he be as good right now? Probably not.
I don't know. And, like, Jarris Walker, I think he's going to go... I mean, there's talk today that maybe Detroit takes him at 5 and gets their souped-up Isaiah Stewart, I guess. But they... Like, he's not in my top 5, but I feel like if he goes later than 5, it's like an absolute steal, and someone's going to get, like, everyone's going to be talking about how, like, how did Jarris Walker not go higher than 6th or 7th, right? And I just think that's going to be such a freaking good player, but yeah, I don't think he's going top 5, so it's just weird.
Here's a fascinating thing about this year's draft that I only really discovered when doing mock draft videos and just doing more mock drafts in general, and looking at the 6th spot with Orlando. with anybody they draft, there's question marks as to like either fit or position.
Yeah.
Right? Like because they got Wagner and Banchero with the 3 and 4. So it's like if they get Hendricks or Walker, like, okay, so are they coming off the bench or are they starting? Then who's the set? Is like Banchero the center? Is Jarris Walker the center? Is Hendricks the center? Because I think both Hendricks and Walker are 4s naturally at the next level. But like you look at Asar Thompson, right? Like he, is better playing off the ball than Amen is, but does he make sense as a fit next to Wagner and Banchero? I'm not sure. Even in Anthony Black in that regard as well. So, like, I guess Whitmore might make the most sense fit-wise, position-wise, and he could play the 2, and his lack of playmaking is fine because you got Banchero, you got Wagner, like he can just kind of score and cut and, try and attack closeouts and try and develop, obviously into that star off the dribble scorer. The problem is with Whitmore is just his lack of feel for creating for others. So, that might be the one guy that makes sense. But everybody else is just, how would that work in Orlando? It's kind of confusing to me.
But yeah, I said this about both Orlando and Washington during last season. It's like they just have too many dudes at every position. Like Washington has Kuzma and Porzingis and Abdia playing well, but they also have like Kispert and I forget who else they had, but someone else that was decent as a forward, and then they draft Johnny Davis, but they have Bradley Beal and trade for Monty Morris and all that. So like, there's not really clear roles or spots for players. And then the Magic with they have a glut of guards, and like they kept drafting, like they draft Jalen Suggs, which is he fell to them. After Toronto took Scotty Barnes instead of him. But like at some point, I think they're going to just have to start making consolidations and picking and choosing what players they want to move forward to.
Yep. Jakir says, that's why I hate making big boards, LOL. I mean, yeah. It's for fun. Like right now we're planning on having our big board rankings for players that get drafted on the stream, but obviously it's context dependent. It'll just be something a little extra that'll just go along with our analysis. We'll have a lot on the stream though, so it'll just be one thing. Shout out to Rip, $10 dono. Sorry, I didn't see the last couple of donos until now, so a little bit late, but thank you guys. Hopefully you guys are still here. I appreciate you for the $10 dono, RIIP. RIIP with the $10 dono. He says, love Blazers Uprise. Thank you for both doing this channel and taking time to do this for us fans with the hang loose emoji. I don't know if it's called anything else, but that's what it's called in Hawaii. Thank you for the dono, man. Appreciate you. Shout out Antonio, $2 dono. Says, underrated free agent, Dario Saric, when he was good.
When he was healthy, meant to say, clarified later.
Oh, yeah, when he was healthy, he was good. Yeah, I mean, 14th man, roster spot minimum, he's fine, if we need to fill roster spots. I feel like he might go back to Phoenix, though, because they need to fill roster spots. So.
Also, I would like his playmaking on offense. Not sure about him defensively. He's okay, but like I think we need a much stronger defensive big as a backup. So yeah, and I do think we missed a couple donations before that.
Oh, we had a Drono.
A Drono, and I think did we get Eric Olson?
Oh, we had an Eric Olson. Yeah. Ciao, Eric Olson, $5 dono. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate you, bro. I see you still in here. That's good. Says, would you be surprised if we punted to the next trade deadline? I read this off in my head and then forgot that I didn't read it off out loud, honestly. I would not be surprised whatsoever. I mean, of course, that's what this team does, man. Like, would any of us be surprised? I don't think so.
If you were taking bets, wouldn't that be like the top odds?
Yeah. We should set betting lines for like which direction the teams goes in, because that's probably the top one.
We set ourselves up asset wise and flexibility wise to make a move at the deadline, and then the deadline comes around and like, well, it made more sense to wait till the off season.
Yeah, I mean they got the talking lines down. They don't even have to think about what they're saying anymore.
Yeah.
That's how much they've rehearsed
You
it.
could just replay one of the old press conferences.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't even know if anyone would know the difference. And they'd probably have an answer for every question that would then be asked. Shout out to Dro with the $5 Drono. Says, well, I guess people won't go to LA or San Fran because of its homeless issue. Yeah, when we were talking about Portland. He says, Portland is a beautiful city. There are people who would go to PDX. Well, according to Dame, there are people that want to come to PDX. So we'll find out who he's talking about, I guess, in the next week. Or maybe after the fact, we'll get in, an inside article like, this is who Dame was actually talking about after the fact.
Please convince that person to leverage his way here, like we did last year.
Yeah. Hopefully. Thank you, Dro, for the $5 Drono. Yeah, and this is what I'll say about cities. Like, I don't talk down upon any city because every city has its like problems, if you want to call it that, or it has, certain aspects of it that some people don't like. Like, you can always nitpick this or that about cities, so they're all kind of the same to me. Some cities are different in certain areas, but I don't know. I don't really understand people that hate on specific cities, because I'm sure you can find something similar where they live, unless they live in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to get into that specific bills, but that's the thing. You can criticize specific laws that maybe you don't agree with, but that's specific. Like, I just don't understand people that just hate on the city, So, anyway, I understand hating on, like, Los Angeles. I don't know. Like, for sports reasons, I understand hating on LA. Do people hate on LA for non-sports reasons, Chris? Because Chris is hating on LA. Is that for sports reasons or non-sports reasons? Because sports are different. I know, like, Portland and Seattle have a rivalry or something. Like, Seattle lights hate Portlanders and Portlanders hate Seattleites, or whatever they call themselves. Chris says, I just hate the Lakers. Exactly. It's always got to hate the Lakers. But anyway, I don't know. I don't like hating on places where people are from. It's just kind of mean. So,
Hey, Carson. How many minutes do you think Sharp will average this upcoming season? I think he's in line to play like 30. It could be more if he's our starting shooting guard, but I don't see any reason why he couldn't get the 24 backup guard minutes as currently constructed and play a few minutes at small forward too. So I'd say 25 probably at minimum.
Yep. We'll take final questions and wrap up the stream, because I'm getting tired. Like, it's about time I throw on my Manta sleep mask, Eric.
Yeah.
And go to bed. Probably not for another few hours. I'm going to finish up a video, actually. But when I go to bed tonight, I'm going to put on the Manta sleep mask. And you guys can put on a Manta sleep mask by going to the link in the description box below and using the promo code Uprise for 10% off. They got a bunch of sleep masks to fit your needs to help you fall asleep and get good quality sleep as well, which is extremely important. I mean, you guys probably know, if you don't have a good night's sleep, how it just lingers the entire next day. Take care of yourselves. Get a Manta sleep mask. Invest in your health. Invest in your sleep. Thank you to them for sponsoring us. Gonna have to have a cool, like, graphic ad read for Thursday's draft stream for them. Because the ad videos they put together are so colorful. They look cool. I've thrown them in a couple videos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to do that on Thursday, because I just like the colors.
Alex will says, serious question, what would cause a Tory hat toss? Trading for cat or something?
Yeah.
I don't even think you're tossing the hat. I think you're breaking something out right.
I mean, I'll just do what I always do. I'll say, why? That doesn't fix the defense. And people will be like, you just hate everything, even blah, blah, blah. Like, you hate GP2 signing? Even though I didn't really hate it, I just raised some questions. You think he signed here just for the money? Yes. I don't know where I'm going with this. We're 3 hours in.
You guys can't just be happy instead of talking about being hard capped and how we're going to be limited all year.
Yeah, won't you be happy
then,
instead of complaining about Wiseman?
Then those same people are like, we're going to trade for KD last summer. It's like, that's impossible, right? Let me dream. They can find a third team.
Yeah. That was after free agency. It was impossible, yeah. That was funny. I don't know. I'm ready to rant and have people complain about me ranting, even though it's like I wasn't high on Cam Reddish. I was Mr. Negative for that. Now it's like that dude's a complete afterthought. The Cam fam, where have they been, Eric? Do they still exist? Like, did they give up? Are they like at free agents too, so they're just, not bothering anyone right now? Where's the Cam fam? Oh, God, AJ, don't start doing it again. Don't make us do it again. The Cam fam's gone. GP2 really signed here for the money. I wish I was wrong more when I was negative, trust me. I wish I was wrong all the time I was negative. Then I would be negative all the time just so good things would happen.
AJ, don't ever say that sentence ever again.
Oh, wow, Eric is such... What?
Oh, it's become a joke that everyone says Eric loves shooters now. It's so hilarious.
I mean, it's not a joke.
No, I mean, it's like people say it's like a negative thing or something. I don't know.
Who's like the next Jabari Smith, Brandon Miller next year? Who's the guy at the top you're going to like that's a lights out shooting forward?
I haven't done a lot of deep dives into next year.
The Matas dude or whatever his name is. You know who I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah. Matas, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm looking at a 2024 mock draft, but here we go. Number 1, Matas Buzelis. G League Ignite. We get to scout him in person, assuming G League Ignite plays in Portland. They should, right? They play on the road. Right?
Who?
G League Ignite?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They have a lot of guys, yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember if anyone that I took extensive notes on went back to school. Bava Miller.
Ade Mara. Never heard of him. 7'3" from Spain.
When Deron Holmes is like a 40% 3-point shooter next year, we'll have that conversation.
Justin Edwards. Dude, that's crazy. Proctor in this mock draft is 9th. And Bobby Clintman is 13th. I mean, yeah.
Man, Duke is going to be freaking crazy this year. I know they're good every year, but...
Yeah, because they actually have some experience that's good. Jeez. Yeah, Gonzaga could low-key be good, but it's we missed our window, I think. I don't know when we'll ever get as good as we were when we had, like, Chet and Suggs. And the Mariners missed their window, their 1-year window in 20 years. Now they're back to being mediocre. So Niners better get the job done, man. They better find a quarterback that can hold up for a season. Well, you got the Reds. The Reds are now better than the Mariners, bro. Like, you guys traded us Luis Castillo last year so you could rebuild, and you're already doing better than us. It's depressing. Portland needs a baseball team.
Yeah. Don't know if pitching is going to hold up, but it's still fun. Definitely not expecting this, especially when they struggled earlier in the season.
Yeah, where's Bronny? Bronny's 28 on this mock draft.
Nice.
So we'll be picking there because we will be the 2 seed in the West.
No, we won't, because our pick will go to Chicago unless we get it back. Or
that's
or
right.
we'd be trading all
we
of.
missed out on LeBron. God damn it. Anyway, any other questions, chat? If not, we're going to sign off. I got some stuff to do. We gave you 3 whole hours.
Chris says Eric became a Reds fan when Griffey went there. No, I was a Reds fan going back to late 80s, early 90s, when they won a World Series in 1990 when I was 11. But, yes, that was freaking awesome when Griffey got traded to the Reds, but didn't really work out too well. But Griffey was my favorite player at the time, so even though he wasn't on the Reds, so when he got traded there, it was freaking sweet. But yeah. Are you muted?
No, I was just reading chat. Yeah, 4 p.m. Pacific stream start time. Draft starts at 5, right? So yeah, probably sometime around then.
Yeah.
Hopefully I don't have anything to finish up. I'm trying to finish everything up beforehand. I have started by far the earliest on a big stream that I ever have, and already put in more work for this stream than I ever have for any other big stream. But I knew it was always going to be something where if I don't procrastinate, I'm just going to want to do more because I have more time, and then it ends up going up to the buzzer anyway. So I don't, there's no avoiding that, I guess. But I got a prospect watch for second round video coming, talking about some prospects, some of their strengths, weaknesses, and guys, for you guys to just watch some tape on. Let me know what you think. And
go check out Tori's video about trading the 23rd pick for picks back, and also my off-season guide that dropped today.
Yeah, we dropped 2 videos today. The prospect watch will be either later tonight or early tomorrow. Just depends on if I get around to putting in all the pictures and graphics.
And David Chavez, will you be live on Wednesday? That's the plan as of right now, to do a stream Wednesday night, right?
Yep. And then also on Wednesday, I want to do a Blazers Pulse episode. I need to post polls for that, so stay tuned in the community tab of the main channel. And then I might do a video where I post my final big board. If I don't get around to it, I don't. But I now have a couple mock drafts. That's kind of the plan. Might miss out on a couple of those videos, but that's 7 videos I'm going to try and get out between now and the draft. So got the content coming for you guys, and then we'll have a bunch of video content afterwards, reacting to the draft and looking ahead to free agency. Just can't believe we're at this point of the off season already. So we got you covered.
It's here. We have, what's the 20th? So what, 11 days from now, free agency will be basically like most of the free agents have signed. And
yeah, I need to start thinking about my free agency graphics. Crap.
Draft will be over. Yeah.
It's gonna be a ride, guys. We're here. We got you covered every step along the way. On your way out, hit the like button. Also, check out Manson Sleep Mask. Link in the description box below. Promo code Uprise. I love having them as a sponsor because they're a good product for you guys, in my opinion. And you can find out for yourself. So, shout out to them. They get Bet Online for sponsoring the stream as well. Promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for a 50% reward bonus. And with that being said, we're out of here. Were you about to say? Do you have final?
Dro, don't ever say Blazers country, let's ride like Russell Wilson ever again.
Yeah, that just means we got to end the stream right this second, so we're out of here. We'll catch you Wednesday night is the next time we're live. or on a video between now and then. So
Or if there's a trade.
Or if there's a trade. Yeah. Yeah. We're going to be here, basically. So until next time, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.